Chapter 51, Goodbye Takaina? Extra Chapter. Asakusa. Miss Tamayo extracted the blood from the collection device and exclaimed, I didn't expect Mr. Aoki to obtain the blood of an upper-rank demon so quickly. Yashiro commented sourly, that guy did a good job. This will accelerate the production of the poison, Tamayo said, her beautiful face glowing with anticipation. The concentration of Muzan Kabutsuji's blood in the upper-rank demon's blood was already quite high. She took out the microscope and began working diligently again. Meanwhile, Aoki continued his wandering. He traveled during the day and hunted demons at night. He had no specific targets. Whenever he heard rumors of a possible demon sighting, he would rush over to investigate. Sometimes he found something worthwhile, but most of the time, he returned empty-handed. Part of this was due to inaccurate information, and the rest because the Demon Slayer Corps had already dealt with it. He had a strong competitor in the Demon Slayer Corps. Aoki could only grit his teeth and endure it. He couldn't gather intelligence as efficiently as the Demon Slayer Corps. Time flew by, and 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. Asakusa was an unremarkable town. One day, a dusty figure wearing a bamboo hat arrived in the town. Aoki looked at the quiet streets and the peaceful smiles of the people and sighed silently, it doesn't feel like there are demons here. 2 months, a full 2 months, and he hadn't even leveled up once. This feeling was both familiar and strange. The familiarity came from his previous experience as a hunter. During his time as a hunter, he couldn't level up for months. However, in his White Walker profession, the level rose rapidly. In just over 3 months, he had soared to level 12, like a rocket. After getting used to this rapid pace, suddenly reverting to the old pace felt strange and painful. I didn't expect that not only are there no big catches, but even the small fry are almost gone, Aoki thought sadly. He wandered around the town, found a place selling wine, and handed the shopkeeper his ghost wine gourd. Boss, I heard there was a demon attack here recently? The shopkeeper smiled and said, there are no demons here. A couple of drunks got into a fight a while back. It got a bit bloody, but that's all. Aoki was mentally prepared for this and wasn't particularly disappointed. There were many such rumors. After asking the shopkeeper if he had heard of any other incidents, Aoki left with his refilled gourd after receiving a negative response. Not only was his progress in leveling up slow, but his search for Tanjiro's home had also stalled. Recently, he had spent a lot of time traveling to the mountains, asking about a boy selling charcoal in every place he visited. Unfortunately, he had no luck. Maybe I need a change of pace. Should I go and chat with Miss Tamayo? Aoki pondered. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks. Not far ahead, 2 women were walking slowly. One was a young woman in her 20s, with long green hair. She had a plain face, yet she was undeniably beautiful. The other woman, who looked like the younger woman's mother, exuded a gentle and virtuous aura. The mother spoke continuously with a smile, and the daughter listened attentively, nodding occasionally. The scene looked very warm and comforting. The 2 women walked from one end of the street to the other and disappeared from sight. Aoki emerged from the shadows, silently watching the direction they left. Takaina, Lady Ri, he murmured. In the past 2 months, he had been so lost that he unknowingly arrived in the town where Takaina and Lady Ri lived. After a moment of silence, Aoki retreated into the shadows and disappeared. On the edge of the town was an ordinary yard, with a grey house surrounded by brick walls, and a small courtyard in the center. Ri and Takaina lived there now. A middle-aged woman sitting across the yard waved her arms when she saw the 2. Ri, Takaina. Aunt Kaori. Aomura Ri and Takaina responded in unison. The middle-aged woman looked at Takaina and smiled, oh, Takaina is becoming more beautiful each day. Any man would be lucky to marry her. Aomura Ri smiled modestly, Kaori, you're too kind. Although Takaina looks fine, she can be too serious at times. It gives me a headache. The middle-aged woman asked casually, does Takaina have someone she likes now? Would you like me to introduce someone? Takaina bowed slightly and said seriously, "Aunt Kaori, I am already engaged." The middle-aged woman was momentarily stunned and then said excitedly, "Really? If Takaina likes him, he must be a wonderful young man. When will you introduce him to me?" Takaina replied, "If there's an opportunity, I will introduce him to you, Aunt Kaori." After that, she nodded and went into the house. The smile on the middle-aged woman's face faded, and she sighed softly. She had noticed it when the mother and daughter first moved in. Takaina was not only beautiful but also well-mannered, smart, and virtuous, the perfect candidate for a daughter-in-law. Today, she finally decided to test the waters, but her inquiry was blocked right away, even before she could reveal her true intentions. Forget it, forget it. How could my unruly boy be worthy of such a fine girl? The middle-aged woman shook her head. Aomura and Takaina returned home and immediately got busy. They collected ingredients, prepared the fish, and cooked the rice. Soon, the aroma of food wafted out of the courtyard and onto the street. Aoki observed them from a distance and mused, "It smells so rich. Today isn't a festival. Are they expecting guests? If I went over now and said, 'I'm back,' I wonder how Takaina and Lady Ri would react." A smile appeared on Aoki's lips, but it quickly vanished. He continued to watch them quietly, without making a move. After a moment, he stood up. "Time to go." Aoki glanced at them one last time and was about to leave, but he suddenly stopped again. A petite girl wearing a butterfly-patterned kimono and carrying a long sword approached the door of the small courtyard. She raised her hand and knocked. Aoki's eyes were drawn to her involuntarily. The girl seemed to sense his gaze and turned her head sharply. "What's wrong, Shinobu-chan?" Takaina walked out and saw the girl, a smile lighting up her face. The two were close in age and had compatible personalities. They had become friends during the move. "Nothing," Shinobu replied, looking away. She had felt something strange, as if someone had been watching her. Probably just someone passing by. She didn't sense any danger. "Come in quickly," Takaina said, not thinking much of it. Shinobu followed her into the courtyard. "You're here, Shinobu-chan," Aomura said, looking up from picking the eels. Shinobu handed over a bag. "Long time no see, Aunt Ri. I brought a souvenir." Chapter 52, The Transparent World. Aoki emerged from the shadows of the alley and exclaimed, "Your perception is sharp, truly befitting the future insect Hashira." The girl he had just seen bore a striking resemblance to the one he had encountered at Mount Natagumo. Given her petite stature, she must be Kocho Shinobu. Unexpectedly, she was the guest that Takaina and Lady Ri had been waiting for. I recall Takaina mentioning in her letter that they met two members of the Demon Slayer Corps, and one of them was Kocho Shinobu. But who was the other? Kocho Kanae? Aoki touched his chin thoughtfully. Beyond that, he couldn't fathom how Takaina and Lady Ri could be connected to Kocho Shinobu. Well, that's good. With Kocho Shinobu frequently around, no demons will dare approach. He glanced across the wall at the house where Takaina and Ri lived before turning away and leaving without looking back. He had no plans to meet them. Muzan Kibutsuji was neither forgiving nor consistent. The concept of not harming family members would never occur to him. Currently, Aoki's importance in Muzan's eyes was likely second only to the Ubuyashiki clan and more significant than all the Hashira. For the safety of Takaina and Lady Ri, the best course of action was to keep his distance. After parting ways with Takaina and Ri, Aoki's luck improved dramatically. Within a month, he encountered 3 powerful demons in quick succession. "Wait, don't kill me. Please don't kill me." A demon with curved horns on either side of its head cowered in fear, its face full of terror. Aoki paused. "Do you know the location of the upper moon demons?" "No, I don't know," the horned demon stammered. Before it could utter another word, its head exploded. "Then I'm very sorry." Aoki retracted his foot politely and extended his palm. "Devour. You have killed a demon and gained 80 experience points. Only 80 experience points? It's getting harder to level up, he sighed inwardly. This horned demon was stronger than the father spider demon from Mount Natagumo. Does this mean that only the 12 Kazuki-level demons will provide substantial experience in the future? But how many of the 12 Kazuki are there? I wonder if I can persuade Muzan to invest more blood into creating demons with the strength of the lower moon. As he pondered, the system notification chimed again. Skill point +1. Congratulations on your level up. Aoki brightened up immediately, setting aside his earlier thoughts. He had already accumulated 2 skill points, and with the 2 points from this level up, he could learn another skill. Aoki opened the system interface. He quickly allocated 2 free attribute points to intelligence and agility, then turned his attention to the skill column. Which skill should I choose this time? First, he ruled out Space Shuttle. Although the ability for long-distance teleportation was tempting, he needed more combat power at the moment. Next, he ruled out the level 5 Demon Blood. Demon Blood mainly helped break the blood limit and granted the ability to survive beheading. In terms of combat power, it only added a bonus of all attributes +1. Though beneficial, it wasn't as valuable as the transparent world. Aoki no longer hesitated. The 4 skill points he had painstakingly saved up vanished in an instant. Suddenly, the world around him became clear, and everything began to appear transparent, giving rise to a profound sense of control. So, this is the transparent world? He murmured to himself. The transparent world had 2 main functions. First, it provided a special perception, akin to X-rays, allowing one to see through surface obstacles and directly perceive the human body. This perception was more powerful than ordinary sight and hearing, enabling one to detect subtle muscle movements and blood vessel contractions, thus predicting enemy actions and finding their weaknesses. This heightened perception could even make it seem like the enemy's movements were slowing down. Second, it assisted in self-control. The enhanced perception wasn't limited to the outside world but also extended to one's own body, allowing better control over one's emotions and fighting spirit. This offered an additional advantage. For most people, achieving the transparent world requires mastering breathing and sword skills, but for me, it's the opposite, Aoki reflected. With the system's power, he had accessed the transparent world without the need for traditional training, which would help him create, improve, and refine his techniques. Barring any surprises, his combat skills would rapidly advance in the coming period. It's somewhat similar to Tsujikuni Yorichi. Aoki exhaled, and the transparent world gradually returned to normal. Through the system, he had bypassed the stages of training in breathing and sword skills to directly access the transparent world. However, he hadn't reached Tsujikuni Yorichi's level. For him, entering and maintaining the transparent world was still challenging and consumed a significant amount of mental and physical energy. Much like Space Shuttle, the transparent world couldn't be sustained for long periods for now. Aoki glanced at the system panel. Indeed, the transparent world can be upgraded further. Reaching level 2 should bring me closer to Tsujikuni Yorichi's level. However, he wouldn't have enough skill points for that anytime soon. Given its current duration, the transparent world was sufficient for a single battle. There was no need for continuous fighting now. Only a few enemies stronger than him would necessitate using the transparent world. Excluding Muzan Kabutsuji, there were even fewer. Name, Aoki. Strength, 18. Constitution, 17. Intelligence, 18. Agility, 18. Occupation, Hunter, White Walker. White Walker. Quality. Level, LV13, 12/1300. Skills, Demon Blood 4, Space Shuttle, Transparent World, Demon Devourer 2. Mission, The Last Days of Upper Moon, January 3rd. Aoki smiled in satisfaction. Finally, he had unlocked all the skills. Even though he wasn't obsessive, seeing not learned yet next to Transparent World in the system had always been a little bothersome. His attributes were nearly all at 18 points. I wonder how I compare to Kokoshibo now. Aoki mused. Kokoshibo's swordsmanship was more advanced, and he had the additional advantage of his blood demon art. But Aoki's blood demon art was also formidable. Although his combat skills and awareness weren't as honed, his demon devourer ability compensated for many shortcomings. Both had access to the transparent world, and in terms of attributes, they were likely on par. Aoki shook his head. Only a real fight would reveal the specifics. Unfortunately, he couldn't find a target even if he wanted to fight. It doesn't have to be Kokoshibo. Akaza, Gyako, Hantengu, any upper moon demon would do. I'm not picky. Aoki chuckled, shut off the system, and his figure melted into the night. Chapter 53, Upper Moon 2, Extra Chapter. Aoki walked down the deserted street. Dawn was approaching. Yet, this was the time when people slept most soundly, and the streets were empty. He pondered silently on which direction to take next. He had already been to the east, south, and north. Maybe it was time to head west. He had acquired the blood of the upper moon. He wondered if Lady Tamayo had discovered anything. Thud, thud. Suddenly, a strange noise caught Aoki's attention. It sounds like a fight. The noise seems distant, but for it to be heard from here, the combatants must be powerful. Could it involve an upper moon demon? Aoki's eyes lit up with curiosity, and he decided to investigate. After mastering the transparent world, he no longer feared Muzan Kabutsuji, and even dared to confront Kokoshibo. Of course, whether he could actually confront them was another matter. Blood splattered continually, and Kocho Kane's face was as pale as paper, her haori and uniform soaked in blood. Opposite her stood a young man wielding a pair of metal fans. His hair was a shade of white oak, with one streak appearing as though it had been drenched in blood. His irises were rainbow-colored, with the words Upper Moon and 2 engraved in his eyes. Upper Moon 2. Kanae sighed inwardly. She hadn't expected her luck to be so good that she would encounter Upper Moon 2 on her way back from a mission. Doma covered his chin with his fan, his face adorned with an innocent, carefree smile. You've inhaled my blood demon art, and your lungs are freezing. It's painful, right? Don't worry, once I consume you, you'll never feel pain or fear again. Kanae didn't respond. Breathing had become extremely difficult, and she lacked the strength to speak. Even she was frightened by the twisted personality of this demon, ranked second among the upper moons. Don't struggle, you're dead anyway. Doma lifted his fan, advising gently. Kanae gripped her long sword tightly. Given her current injuries, her fate seemed sealed. But she refused to give in. Not just for herself. As a Hashira, her body was strong, and consuming her would significantly benefit a demon. Upper Moon 2 was already terrifying, and she couldn't allow herself to become the nourishment for Doma to grow even stronger. Dawn was approaching. She just had to hold on a little longer. However, with my injuries, can I really last until dawn? Kanae felt a heavy weight in her heart. Just then, both Kocho Kanae and Doma paused in surprise. Boom! Half of Doma's body suddenly exploded. Aoki appeared beside Kocho Kanae, staring at Doma. Your reactions are quick. Defector. Mr. Aomura. Kanae and Doma spoke simultaneously, surprise etched on their faces. It seems introductions are unnecessary. Aoki said calmly. He had already recognized the girl next to him as Kanae, the Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps, whom he had met once at Mount Nadagumo. Though he had never seen Doma in person before, he was familiar with him. Doma clapped his hands with a fan, his eyes showing a childlike innocent smile. Oh, I didn't expect to be the first to meet a defector. Aoki frowned slightly. Your way of talking is quite revolting. He had activated the transparent world and could clearly sense the deep indifference beneath Doma's innocent smile. Doma's smile didn't falter. Oh, it seems you misunderstand me. I'm genuinely pleased to meet you. That individual has always wanted to capture you. Kocho Kanae struggled to maintain her balance and weakly said, "Mr. Aomura, how about we join forces to fight him? You should find a place to rest." Aoki declined without hesitation, keeping his eyes fixed on Doma. Most upper moons were twisted individuals, and Doma, as upper moon 2, was the most twisted of them all. Doma lacked human emotions entirely and despised humans from the core of his being. Even as a human, his personality was highly twisted. After encountering Muzan Kabutsuji, Doma had asked to be transformed into a demon, which only amplified his twisted nature. He believed that consuming humans was a form of salvation for them, and that integrating such foolish creatures with himself was an honor for humanity. Moreover, Doma particularly enjoyed devouring women. This habit had caused a severe rift between him and Akaza, Upper Moon 3, who never ate women. By the way, did you know? I introduced Daki and Jotaro, the demons you killed, to Muzan. Doma sighed. They were my good friends. Now, I finally have a chance to avenge them. I told you, your fake smile is disgusting. Aoki's figure blurred as he appeared next to Doma, slamming his fist down. Blood demon art, lotus leaf ice. Doma reacted instantly, waving his fan as cold mist coalesced into ice crystal lotuses, causing the temperature to drop rapidly. Aoki didn't even glance at the ice crystal lotuses. Crack! 2 lotuses landed on him, instantly forming a layer of frost, necrotizing the flesh on the surface. But Aoki's fist also connected with Doma's head, shattering half of it. Blood demon art, lotus flower. Doma seemed unfazed by his injuries and used the momentum to retreat, waving his fan again. Vines of ice crystals entwined with ice lotuses formed, encircling Aoki from all directions. Aoki's figure vanished and reappeared behind Doma. As he prepared to strike, sharp icicles materialized in the air. Blood demon art, winter ice pillar. Aoki halted, swung his fist to shatter the ice pillar, then turned his gaze back to Doma, who had moved away. No wonder Akaza lost to you. If Kokushibo was a swordsman and Akaza a warrior, then Doma was a mage. His large-scale ice-based blood demon arts, both offensive and controlling, were highly effective against Akaza. Doma maintained his feigned innocent smile. That's because Akaza-sama doesn't consume women. I've told him many times that women are very nutritious. Aoki ignored his twisted logic and looked up at the sky, murmuring, "Time is running out." As soon as he spoke, he vanished again. This attack is stronger than I expected. I sense something bad will happen if I take too many hits. Doma's body and head wounds had not yet regenerated, and he clasped his hands together. Boom! A gigantic ice Buddha, over 10 meters tall, rose from the ground. Blood demon art, mist ice, water lily bodhisattva. Chapter 54, Chi and Blood Pill. It's so fast? Aoki frowned slightly, pointed his toes, and his body rose from the ground. There was a huge ice lotus on each shoulder of the ice Buddha, with Doma sitting on the ice lotus on the right shoulder. Aoki rushed straight to the ice lotus and punched at Doma's broken head. Just as his fist approached, the ice lotus beneath Doma suddenly closed. Boom! The ice lotus shattered, but Doma's figure had disappeared. A shadow loomed, and the ice Buddha waved its palm and swatted at Aoki. The area was surrounded by an icy mist. An ordinary person would have suffered frostbite just by approaching it. Aoki twisted in midair, lashing out with his right leg like a whip. The ice Buddha's palm shattered, but the cold mist spread and instantly restored it to its original form. Aoki's figure disappeared and reappeared behind the ice Buddha's left shoulder, his arms waving as cold rays intertwined. Aoki style, funeral. Bang! The ice Buddha's right shoulder was obliterated, revealing Doma inside. His injuries had already healed, and he curiously asked, "How did you find me here?" Simultaneously, the ice Buddha turned its head, opened its mouth, and spewed a deadly cold mist. How did Aoki find him? Of course, it was through the transparent world. Aoki lightly stepped on the ice Buddha, twisted his body, and repeatedly swung his fists. Boom, boom, boom. This time, the targeted area didn't break apart. Instead, the ice Buddha trembled, cracks spread across its surface, and ice chips flew everywhere. The vibrating fist was a technique Aoki had developed, inspired by Akaza's moves. Doma reappeared on another lotus and waved his fan. Blood demon art, lotus leaf ice. Ice crystal lotuses formed around him. Aoki frowned slightly, his figure flickered, and he returned to Kocho Kanae's side. It seems this is the end for today. What a pity. Doma smiled slightly, his figure disappearing as the massive ice Buddha broke into pieces, turning into ice crystals scattered on the ground. Didn't you capture him? Kocho Kanae leaned weakly against the wall, her voice faint with reluctance. There wasn't enough time. Aoki's face also showed regret. As he finished speaking, the golden rays of the sun pierced the sky, illuminating the world. He quickly stepped back into the shadows. Doma was incredibly hard to kill. Aoki's greatest advantage against demons was the demon-devouring technique, which made it so that he could strike without taking damage, while every hit from his opponent would harm them. However, Doma's Water Lily Bodhisattva move largely neutralized this advantage. Doma used the Water Lily Bodhisattva like a protective mecha, making it difficult to directly attack his body. Since the Water Lily Bodhisattva was created through his blood demon art, it wasn't affected by demon devouring. Additionally, as a mage, Doma specialized in ranged ice attacks. The perception and predictive advantages from the transparent world were significantly diminished against him. Most crucially, there simply wasn't enough time. It must be acknowledged that the Upper Moons are indeed formidable opponents. So far, Aoki had faced 3 Upper Moons and had only managed to defeat the weakest, Upper Moon 6. Shaking off his distracting thoughts, Aoki glanced at Kocho Kanae. He was about to speak when he suddenly turned his head. A petite figure was sprinting rapidly along the road, feathers fluttering around her like a beautiful butterfly. Sister. Please be okay. Kocho Shinobu's face was serious, her heart filled with anxiety. After their parents died, she and her sister had relied on each other. If anything happened to her sister. She gritted her teeth and quickened her pace. As she passed the alley between 2 rows of buildings, Kocho Shinobu abruptly stopped. In the alley, a familiar figure leaned weakly against the wall, blood flowing everywhere. Sister. And, a demon? Is he the one who hurt my sister? Shinobu Kocho's eyes widened with fury. Her hand gripped the hilt of her sword as she launched herself like an arrow. Bastard. Scum. Die. Just as she was about to draw her sword for a killing strike, her sister's anxious voice reached her ears. Shinobu, stop. Huh? Shinobu Kocho frowned, confusion filling her mind, but she halted. Sister? She kept her hand on her sword's hilt, warily watching the demon in the shadows. Kocho Kanae sighed with relief, though her face grew even paler. He's not our enemy, Shinobu. Don't you recognize him? Shinobu Kocho looked more closely at Aoki. When her eyes landed on his golden vertical pupils, she gasped, Mr. Aomura? Kocho Kanae smiled weakly. It wasn't Mr. Aomura who hurt me. It was Upper Moon too. If Mr. Aomura hadn't arrived in time, I might have been eaten by Upper Moon too. Aoki shook his head. The dawn is breaking. Even without me, you wouldn't have been eaten. Reassured that Aoki wasn't an enemy, Shinobu Kocho turned her attention to her sister and quickly moved to her side, looking at her in distress. Sister, you're bleeding a lot. She's dying. Aoki observed Kocho Kanae, seeing through the transparent world the extent of her injuries. Externally, the wounds were severe. Internally, her lungs were perforated, and other organs were severely frostbitten. Butterfly Kanae's heartbeat was growing weaker and weaker. His intervention had helped slightly, but hadn't changed the situation fundamentally. Shinobu Kocho glared at Aoki immediately. Kocho Kanae grabbed her sister's hand. Shinobu, Mr. Aomura is right. You should understand the situation. No. No. There must be a way. I brought medicine. Shinobu Kocho's eyes turned red as she hastily pulled out various medicines. Kocho Kanae stopped her. No, Shinobu. I know my condition well. In my last moments, I have something to say. Ahem. Aoki interrupted her, pulling out a porcelain bottle. Don't worry, try this first. The butterfly sisters looked puzzled. Aoki didn't waste words. He opened the lid, took out a red pill, and tossed it to them. Shinobu Kocho quickly caught it. A strange, invigorating fragrance filled the air. What is this? A kind of medicine, Aoki replied. The pill he offered was a chi and blood pill. He had long considered the effects of chi and blood pills on humans. Since humans could drink demon blood, it stood to reason they could also consume chi and blood pills. For Aoki, chi and blood pills were a unique form of nourishment, or a tonic that rapidly restored his depleted strength. For humans, they should be an extraordinary tonic. Perhaps it could sustain someone as gravely injured as Kocho Kanae. Given the resilience of a Hashira, if the pill could keep Kocho Kanae alive, she would likely recover. Chapter 55, Agreement, Extra Chapter. Medicine? Shinobu Kocho couldn't believe that a pill could do anything, but at this moment, she was willing to grasp at any straw. Sister. Shinobu carefully placed the red pill at Kocho Kanae's mouth. Although Kanae didn't believe that a simple pill could heal her injuries, she didn't want to refuse Mr. Aomura's kindness. Reluctantly, she opened her mouth and swallowed the pill. At first, she felt nothing, but soon her expression changed. It felt as if a fireball had ignited inside her, spreading waves of warmth from her chest to her limbs. Kanae's pale face quickly turned a healthy shade of red, her weak heartbeat grew stronger, and her breathing stabilized. She instinctively used her breathing techniques to harness the power of the medicine and control her injuries. The sensation of dying, like ice melting under the sun, rapidly faded, and even some minor wounds began to scab over. How is this possible? Kanae thought, shocked. A pill the size of a soybean had such miraculous effects, defying all her expectations. Shinobu cried tears of joy, wonderful, sister. It's a miracle. What she had thought was just a desperate grasp for hope turned into a reality beyond her wildest dreams. Overwhelmed by a surge of emotions, Shinobu couldn't contain her tears. Aoki cautioned, don't celebrate too soon, you still need comprehensive and proper treatment. Though Kanae's condition appeared significantly improved, the chi and blood pills' effects were only temporary. Her injuries were still far from healed. Kanae understood her situation well, but remained awestruck. She had been on the brink of death, yet a single pill had pulled her back from the abyss. As a doctor, she knew how unbelievable this was. She also realized the immense value of the medicine. Thank you, Mr. Aomura, for saving my life, Kanae said gently and solemnly. Thank you for saving my sister. Shinobu added, wiping her tears. Her face, still tender and youthful at 14, was flushed with relief, her eyes red from crying. Her petite figure made her seem even younger. Aoki glanced at her before turning his attention back to Kanae. You're welcome. I had my reasons for saving you. Reasons? Kanae was puzzled. Mr. Aomura, is there something we can do for you? Aoki shook his head. You'll understand later. He only had 3 chi and blood pills. He was willing to use one now largely because of the kindness the butterfly sisters had shown to Takaina and his master's wife. Judging by their reactions, it seemed they only knew about his deeds in Azabu and hadn't discovered his true identity. For now, he preferred to keep his secrets to himself. The butterfly sisters were left in confusion. Aoki stood up and looked outside the alley. All right, go back and heal. I should be on my way. Mr. Aomura, please wait. Kanae, anxious, stood up abruptly despite her injuries and grabbed Aoki's hand. Don't get too excited, Aoki cautioned. You could worsen your injuries and waste the effects of the medicine. Kanae took a deep breath, but didn't release his hand. She looked at him earnestly. I need to speak with you about something important. Aoki, seeing her sincerity, thought for a moment. Okay, but you should treat your injuries first. Let's meet here again in half a month. Kanae shook her head. A week will be enough. As a pillar, her body was exceptionally strong. Though not as resilient as a demon's, her recovery ability was far superior to that of an ordinary human. Alright, see you in 7 days. Aoki nodded slightly at the two of them before his figure vanished. Sister, was that the ability you mentioned? Shinobu's eyes widened in disbelief. She hadn't seen how Mr. Aomura had left at all. Kanae nodded, her eyes sparkling. Shinobu, did you notice? Mr. Aomura is different from other demons. He doesn't have that rotten smell, and his gaze when he looks at us lacks that hunger. Indeed, Mr. Aomura was unlike other demons. Shinobu agreed, but there was something more pressing to address. She quickly interrupted her sister's thoughts. Sister, let's get back to the butterfly house. You need to start your treatment immediately. Yes, Kanae agreed. I need to heal quickly so we can meet Mr. Aomura in 7 days. Though her injuries were still severe, with the physical resilience of a pillar and their medical expertise, she was no longer in immediate danger. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been so calm. Shinobu carried Kanae on her back and hurried towards the butterfly house. Sister, you mentioned encountering the second upper-rank demon. How strong was he? Kanae's expression grew serious. Very strong. Stronger than we had previously thought. During our fight, he didn't even show his full strength, yet I could hardly defend myself. It would take at least 3 pillars to stand a chance against him. At this point, there were only 8 pillars in the Demon Slayer Corps, and they struggled to contain even 3 upper-rank demons together. And above the upper-rank demons was the even more formidable Muzan Kabutsuji. Shinobu felt a heavy weight settle in her heart. She asked again, what about Mr. Aomura? Mr. Aomura is stronger than the second upper rank. Kanae recalled their brief encounter. Though their fight was short, Mr. Aomura consistently held the upper hand. Shinobu was not particularly surprised by this answer. After all, Mr. Aomura had defeated an upper-rank demon. She thought of something else. Sister, should we report this to the master? Not yet, Kanae replied firmly. Although I don't know why, Mr. Aomura has shown goodwill towards us, especially towards you. Shinobu was puzzled. She had noticed Mr. Aomura seemed more interested in her than her sister, even though Kanae had been the more welcoming one initially. Despite her initial aggression, Mr. Aomura appeared more drawn to her. Kanae continued, if we disclose information about Mr. Aomura without his consent, it could harm our relationship with him. It's better to wait until after we've spoken to him and gained his approval. Then we can inform the master. Shinobu nodded in agreement. Mr. Aomura had saved her sister, which was as good as saving her. At this moment, she fervently hoped that Mr. Aomura was the good demon her sister believed him to be. She didn't want any conflict with Mr. Aomura. She wished to maintain a friendly relationship. Chapter 56, Ubuyashiki Kagaya's Invitation. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. In the familiar alley, the sisters Shinobu and Kanae stood side by side. They looked similar and dressed similarly, but they gave off completely different vibes. The former was tall, beautiful, and gentle, while the latter was petite, cute, and dignified. Although Kanae's injury had not yet healed completely, it basically didn't affect her movements. She looked around for a while. Shinobu, do you think Mr. Aomura will come? Shinobu looked at her helplessly. Sister, you've asked this question 5 times. Really? Kanae smiled gently, not embarrassed. I guess I can't hold my temper. Shinobu understood her sister. Her sister always hoped that humans and demons could coexist peacefully. Previously, this was always an unrealistic fantasy, but with Mr. Aomura, it had a possibility of success. Mr. Aomura is not someone who breaks his word. Since he promised, he will definitely come. As soon as she finished speaking, they both looked at the entrance of the alley. A figure appeared where it had been empty just moments ago. Sorry for the wait. Aoki walked into the alley, his eyes casually sweeping around to ensure there were only the butterfly sisters present, with no ambush in sight. We just arrived not long ago. Kanae showed a gentle smile. Shinobu quietly rolled her eyes. How is your body? Aoki asked. Thanks to Mr. Aomura's medicine, it's fine now. After a few pleasantries, Aoki didn't beat around the bush and said directly, So, Miss Kanae, what do you want to talk to me about? Before that, I'd like to ask, Mr. Aomura, do you eat people? Kanae looked at Aoki with burning eyes. I never eat people. Aoki said calmly. He didn't mind discussing this topic and was willing to show his condition, but whether others believed him or not was beyond his control. Kanae took a deep breath and said seriously, So, Mr. Aomura, are you willing to cooperate with our Demon Slayer Corps? No. Aoki shook his head. What if you have a change of heart and want to kill me? Kanae hurriedly said, No. I can guarantee with my life that Mr. Aomura will never be in danger during our cooperation. Aoki glanced at her. When did I say I was worried about my own safety? I'm afraid that I will get unhappy and kill you. Unlike those organizations in other worlds that always hide dirty deeds, the Demon Slayer Corps is very pure and exists specifically to fight against demons. The leaders of the Demon Slayer Corps, including the Ubuyashiki clan and the Hashira, are idealists and genuinely good people. He was unwilling to contact the Demon Slayer Corps because of his identity as a demon. If he were an ordinary human, the Demon Slayer Corps would be very reliable, and the Hashira are people who prioritize the lives of ordinary humans above their own. Puff. Hearing this, Shinobu couldn't help laughing out loud, and quickly turned serious again under her sister's gaze. Mr. Aomura, although you are very strong, our Demon Slayer Corps is not weak either. Mr. Aomura, we are very sincere. Would you reconsider? Kanae felt a bit helpless. Things were developing very differently from what she expected, and now she didn't know what to do. Aoki said, Okay, we can cooperate. Huh? Shinobu and Kanae were both stunned. This change was too fast and too easy, right? Aoki smiled. I was just joking with you earlier. 7 days ago, when Kanae mentioned that she had something important to discuss with him, he had roughly guessed their intentions. His willingness to come here actually showed his attitude. He needed more and more experience to level up. Demons were becoming harder to find, and the experience gained was diminishing. It was increasingly difficult to level up by himself. He had suffered enough from insufficient intelligence in the past 2 months. Now that the Demon Slayer Corps had reached out, he had no reason to refuse. As for whether this was a trap, he didn't care or was willing to take the risk. With his current strength, even if all 9 Hashira attacked him together, they couldn't keep him. Just kidding. Shinobu felt a bit speechless. Kanae didn't mind at all and said excitedly, Great. But, Mr. Aomura, I need to report this to our leader first. No problem, you can discuss it. Aoki said. 7 days later. They met again in the alley. As soon as they met, Kanae said, Mr. Aomura, our leader wants to meet and talk with you in person. Aoki was surprised. The head of the Ubuyashiki family wants to see me? Kanae smiled. The Lord said that since we want to cooperate, we should establish real trust between us. Brave. Aoki said. The Demon Slayer Corps would certainly be aware of his strength and abilities. It was absolutely risking his life for Ubuyashiki Kagaya to meet him. However, this wasn't surprising. In order to increase the probability of defeating Muzan Kabutsuji, Ubuyashiki Kagaya could personally use explosives to send himself, his wife, and children to the sky. In the original work, he went against the majority's opinion and kept Tanjiro and Nezuko alive, laying the foundation for defeating Muzan Kabutsuji. With extraordinary wisdom and courage, although Ubuyashiki Kagaya wasn't physically strong, he was indeed the soul of the Demon Slayer Corps. Kanae added, the Lord also said that he had a premonition that Mr. Aomura would be the key to defeating Muzan Kibutsuji. Premonition? Aoki's eyes moved slightly. The Demon Slayer world isn't as simple as it seems. Muzan Kibutsuji is actually from the Ubuyashiki clan. After he became a demon, the Ubuyashiki clan was cursed, and the children born became weaker and weaker, almost leading to their extinction at one point. Under the advice of the Lord of Gods, the Demon Slayer Corps was established, and they began to fight against demons, marrying people from the priest clan for generations, finally getting rid of the fate of extermination. However, no one could live past the age of 30. Curse, prophecy, hell, reincarnation. The Demon Slayer world seems weak, but something extremely terrifying seems to be hidden behind it. Aoki glanced at the sky. Is there a god in this world? Muzan said he had never encountered heavenly punishment, but the birth of Tsujikuni Yorichi, the appearance of breathing techniques, stripes, red swords, and the transparent world, aren't they butcher knives aimed at Muzan? If he replaces Muzan and becomes the ultimate creature, will he also face heavenly punishment? Aoki thought for a while and shook his head secretly. Even if there are gods in this world, their power to interfere must be very limited. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken 1,000 years to solve Muzan Kibutsuji. Now is not the time to consider these things. Aoki looked at Kanae. I am looking forward to meeting the Ubuyashiki family. Chapter 57 Aoki vs. the Pillar. Aoki followed Butterfly Kanae to an inconspicuous small town. He looked around curiously. Rows of buildings lined both sides of the road neatly. There were very few pedestrians, and the sounds of barking dogs and crowing roosters could be heard. I thought the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters would be somewhere deep in the mountains and old forests, but I didn't expect you to live so elegantly in a town. Butterfly Kanae said, sometimes, towns are safer than mountains and forests, and our lord has more than one residence. Aoki nodded and said nothing. It is normal for a cunning rabbit to have 3 burrows. The Ubuyashiki clan, the Demon Slayer Corps, and Muzan Kibutsuji have been entangled for hundreds of years, so they naturally understand this. The two came to a courtyard on the edge of the town. The courtyard occupied a vast area, and the gate was closed. Butterfly Kanae knocked on the door, opened it, and walked in without waiting for a response. Aoki followed closely behind. As soon as he stepped through the door, eyes fell on him. Some were wary, curious, or hostile. Aoki's expression remained calm, and with a glance, he took in the scene in the yard. There were quite a few people in the yard. Directly in front of him was a house with curved eaves. At the door sat a black-haired young man with a hideous scar on his face. Next to him sat a beautiful white-haired woman. Not far from them, 2 children were playing. On their right side, 4 young men with powerful auras stood. Ubuyashiki Kagaya, who had hideous scars on his face, stood up with a smile. Nice to meet you, Mr. Aomura. I have long admired your name, the head of the Ubuyashiki clan. After Aoki said this, he looked at the 4 people staring at him intently. Are there only 4 Hashira here? Oh, no, there should be 5 including Miss Kanae. Ubuyashiki Kagaya's gentle smile made people feel at peace. Actually, I thought it would be nice if Kanae brought you here, but these children insisted on coming. Understandable. Aoki looked at the 4 people. They were all familiar faces. The first young man had an open chest, a body covered with scars, and fierce eyes, the wind Hashira, Sanemi Shinazugawa. The second person had a stern face and wore a 2-colored Haori, the water Hashira, Ju Tomioka. The third one was tall, strong, white-haired, and handsome, the sound Hashira, Tengen Yuzui. The fourth one was taller, dressed as a monk, blind in both eyes, the stone Hashira, Jiomiai Himajima. He could feel that the 4 were looking at him with strong hostility and fear. Both sides stared at each other without speaking, and the atmosphere gradually became tense. After a moment, Aoki said in surprise, "Aren't you going to do anything?" He thought these people wouldn't be able to resist testing him or trying to strike him. Especially the irritable Sanemi Shinazugawa. Ubuyashiki Kagaya said sincerely, Mr. Aomura, we sincerely want to cooperate with you. These children are only worried about my safety and have no harmful intentions towards you. A smile appeared on Aoki's face. It doesn't matter, I think everyone is very interested in me. Let's spar. In fact, I am also very curious about breathing techniques. Sanemi Shinazugawa couldn't wait and said, my lord, since he said so, we shouldn't refuse, right? His eyes were wide open, as if glaring all the time, exuding a stern and violent aura. Tenjin Yuzui took the long knife from his back, staring at Aoki with burning eyes. If we want to cooperate, I also think it is best to find out each other's strengths first. Jyomi Himejima clasped his hands together and shed 2 lines of tears. I agree too. Ba. Tomioka didn't speak, but he put his palm on the handle of his sword, clearly expressing his attitude. The atmosphere in the courtyard suddenly became tense. Aoki said, looking at the sincerity and courage of the head of the Ubuyashiki family who came with his family, I will not harm you. Of course, you don't have to worry about holding back. You can go all out. All 4 of them looked displeased. This was pure contempt. However, angry as they were, they wouldn't refuse this proposal. For them, being able to kill demons was the most important thing. If they could gain an advantage in fighting demons by putting down some dignity, it was worth it. Ubuyashiki Kagaya pondered for a moment, then looked at Butterfly Kanae. What's your opinion, Kanae? Butterfly Kanae looked at Aoki. Since Mr. Aomura agrees, then I have no objection. Okay. Since you all feel this way, I won't stop you. Ubuyashiki Kagaya didn't waste any more words. He took his wife and children and retreated. Sanemi, Kanae, and the others dispersed in tacit agreement, surrounding Aoki in the middle. Aoki looked around. Are you ready? Who will take action first? Sanemi's eyes were bloodshot, with murderous intent on his face. We already have the numerical advantage, so let you go first. Before he finished speaking, his expression changed drastically. Aoki, who was still in the middle of the encirclement, suddenly appeared in front of Sanemi, his fists ready. Then I won't be polite. So fast? No, it's not just fast, you can't see the movement trajectory at all. Is this the ability Kanae mentioned? Sanemi roared in his heart, draw the sword. Draw the sword. Hurry up and draw the sword. Although his mind didn't react, his tempered body did. The light green blade suddenly unsheathed. Breath of wind, 6th form, black wind mountain mist. The black and green sword light suddenly appeared. However, Aoki's fist cleverly deflected, missed the blade, and hit Sanemi's chest hard. Poof. Sanemi took a step back and spat out a large mouthful of blood, but his movements did not stop. Breath of wind, 3rd form, clean storm wind tree. In the transparent world, Aoki clearly captured the changes in his muscles, accurately judged his movements, stepped forward, and like a prophet, his fists and elbows fell like lightning. The first punch hit Sanemi's shoulder, breaking his sword move. Then a heavy knee hit his stomach, causing Sanemi's body to bow like a prawn. With the final elbow strike, Sanemi spat out another large mouthful of blood, his face down, and his whole body slammed to the ground. A sharp sound of breaking through the air came from behind, followed by hurried footsteps. Aoki's figure suddenly disappeared. Wow! The broadaxe wrapped around the iron chain slashed through the air, but only hit emptiness. Tenjin Yuzui and Tomioka missed the opportunity. Aoki appeared next to Jyomi Himejima. What a powerful physique. He is indeed the strongest in the Demon Slayer squad today. Jyomi stepped on the iron chain, and the meteor hammer at the other end slammed toward Aoki's head. Breath of stone, 2nd form, upper smash. I seem to know your weakness. Aoki's eyes moved, and his figure disappeared again. This time, he did not stay away from Jyomi, but appeared diagonally above him, in an absolutely unexpected position. His palm became like a knife, cutting down silently. Aoki style, funeral slice. Chapter 58 Crushing. Jyomi Himejima dragged the chain, and the broadaxe whizzed down. However, before he had even walked halfway through the road, Aoki's palm was already close to his neck. At the critical moment, a pink long sword thrust out from below. Clang! Aoki's sword was blocked, but he was not disappointed at all. As expected, Jyomi Himejima was very strong and was undoubtedly the strongest member of the Demon Slayer squad. Although he was blind, his other senses, including his intuition, were extremely keen. He even had an inner eye that could see through superficial illusions and penetrate into the essence of things. Coupled with the sound of his special weapon, he could accurately grasp the surrounding space and the enemy's movements without being affected by any visual defects. "It's a pity that you met me," Aoki said silently. Space Shuttle allowed him to skip all the intermediate processes and appeared directly next to Jyomi Himejima from a distance. Without vision, this defect would be infinitely magnified. No matter how superb his skill, the weight of Jyomi Himejima's weapon determined that his attack speed was limited. Adding the two together, for him, as the strongest member of the Demon Slayer Corps, Jyomi Himejima became the least threatening and easiest person to deal with. If Transparent World was the nemesis of the Akaza, then Space Shuttle was undoubtedly the nemesis of Jyomi Himejima. Whoosh! The broadaxe swept across, but did not even touch the corner of Aoki's clothes. Butterfly Kanae turned around sharply. Kanae-san's moves are so gentle too. Mr. Aomura's voice sounded in her ears, and at the same time, she felt a pain in her chest and flew out. At this time, Tomioka Ju, Sanemi Shinazugawa, and Yuzui Tengen arrived at the same time, surrounding Aoki. Water Breath, 7th form, Drop Ripple Thrust. Breath of Wind, 6th form, Black Wind Mountain Mist. The Breath of Sound, 1st form, Roar. Boom! Aoki's figure disappeared, and all three long knives missed. With the improvement of his intelligence, he had become more and more able to control the space shuttle. His control of distance had become more precise, and his cooling time had also been reduced by almost half. This ability again. Sanemi's expressions were a bit ugly. When they heard Kanae describe it before, they felt that it was very troublesome. After experiencing it, they found that it was 10 times more difficult than expected. The light outlined Aoki's figure. He landed lightly and looked at the 5 people opposite. Kanae and Jyomi Himejima faced each other with their backs to each other, while Sanemi Shinazugawa, Tomioka Ju, and Yuzui Tengen each guarded an area. "Are you waiting for me to take the initiative to attack?" Aoki said. The faces of the 5 pillars all darkened. The first form, Dust Whirlwind Cutter. Sanemi Shinazugawa slashed sharply with his long sword, and a spiral wind blade suddenly took shape. Yuzui Tengen and Tomioka Ju also launched attacks at the same time. Kanae and Jyomi Himejima were in the underworld raiding formation, ready to capture traces of Aoki's flash at any time. Pillars were not very good at cooperating with each other. They were usually very busy, each with their own area of responsibility, and there was no time to practice coordination. But they all had very high combat qualities. Even if they had never worked together before, they could quickly learn the ropes. By the way, they also came up with a way to deal with the space shuttle. From what you could see, it was like 2 groups attacking alternately, with one group on guard against the other. That was the formation they were currently using. "That's a good idea, but have you forgotten something?" Aoki's expression was calm, and the muscle changes of the 3 people were clearly reflected in the transparent world. He knew their moves and movements clearly. Next, he moved. Bang bang bang. Sanemi Shinazugawa, Tomioka Ju, and Yuzui Tengen flew out at the same time, with traces of blood spilling from the corners of their mouths, and their faces became a little pale. Aoki also had a few wounds on his body, but they were completely healed in the blink of an eye, and his eyes passed over the 3 of them. They were just 3 whiteboard pillars. Did he need to hide? The expressions of Sanemi Shinazugawa, Butterfly Kanae, and Jyomi Himejima, who were not directly involved in the attack, all froze. They had thought about various possibilities, but never considered the situation where the three pillars could not defeat even if they worked together. 1-on-1 didn't work, 2-on-1, 3-on-1 didn't work, and 5-on-1 didn't work. How could they fight this? Aoki didn't care what they thought. He flashed his body and suddenly appeared above Yuzui Tengen, who had not yet landed. Yuzui Tengen's expression changed greatly, and he slashed with his knife without hesitation. But Aoki was faster. The first punch knocked his weapon away, and the second punch hit his heart. Boom! Yuzui Tengen hit the ground hard, spitting out a mouthful of blood again. Aoki took advantage of the recoil, his body slightly vacated for a distance, and then disappeared again. The breath of wind, fifth form, cold mountain wind. Sanemi Shinazugawa waved his long sword directly out of thin air after seeing Yuzui Tengen being attacked. What a pity, it's still useless. In the transparent world, all his movements were clearly visible, and Aoki appeared directly on the side where the long sword could not attack. Boom! Sanemi Shinazugawa flew out, feeling like his waist was broken. Yuzui! Sanemi! At this time, the attacks of Jyomi Himejima and Butterfly Kanae also arrived. In fact, they reacted when the three people were seriously injured. But Aoki's movements were too fast, and in just a blink of an eye, Yuzui Tengen and Sanemi Shinazugawa were hit hard again. Rock breathing, fifth form, arcs of justice. Flower breathing, fourth form, crimson Hanagoromo. What made the two angry and helpless was that Aoki's figure disappeared again. Mr. Ju, be careful. Butterfly Kanae shouted without even looking. However, her reminder was still too late. When she just said the first word, Tomioka Ju had already seen the figure that suddenly appeared in front of him. Bang, bang, bang. The long sword was unsheathed, and the two quickly fought. Aoki was intact, but Tomioka Ju was hit by several punches, and his face became paler. At this moment, the sound of the chain rustling sounded, and the strong wind poured in from the back of the neck. Aoki let go of Tomioka Ju, who was about to fall, and turned around to grab him. Crash! His palm accurately avoided the broadaxe and grabbed the chain. Jyomi Himejima paused, realizing that this was not good. Aoki pulled hard. The chain tightened, and Jyomi Himejima took a step forward uncontrollably. Now, even the best human physique was inferior to him in absolute strength. Butterfly Kanae appeared beside him, flower breathing, fifth form, peonies of futility. Her long sword stabbed at Aoki from all directions, and the pink blade swayed like a peony. Aoki appeared out of thin air above Jyomi Himejima. Jyomi Himejima was a beat slower, and by the time he reacted, it was too late. Boom! He was hit hard on the head, and his huge body fell with a thud, bleeding. Chapter 59, Intelligence. 4 of the 5 pillars fell. After Aoki landed, he looked at the only girl who was still standing. Kanae looked serious and took a defensive posture. Aoki smiled. Let's stop here today. Kanae was stunned and slowly put away her long sword. She still had the strength to fight, but there was no need to continue. This was not a life-and-death battle. The other pillars stood up one after another, their faces were very ugly. Their injuries were not serious, strictly speaking, they had not completely lost their combat effectiveness. However, everyone knew that this was the result of Aomura showing mercy. If it was a life-and-death battle, even if they could burst out with greater potential, at least half of them would have to die. 5-1, lost. And the loss was so tragic. This was simply a slap in the face. Aoki looked calm. When he found that he was extremely restrained by Jyomi, he had already expected this result. Kokushibo faced Jyomi with sets of equipment, a sword, and transparent world, plus 2 sets of equipment and a sword, and briefly entered the transparent world, plus Sanemi, and Genya, who played a miraculous role. In the end, he still killed Genya, and forced Sanemi and Jyomi into desperate situations many times. He was facing only 5 pillars, not a life and death battle. The strongest among them was severely restrained by himself. In this situation, he couldn't win easily, so he might as well find a piece of tofu to kill himself. Tap, tap, tap. Kagaya walked over with the support of a mane. His expression was still calm, as if he had not been hit, and he spoke gently. Mr. Aomura, how does the strength of the upper moons compare to yours? Aoki had thought about this question a long time ago. My current strength should be similar to that of the upper moons. Kanae cheered up and asked, Mr. Aomura, how do you think our strength compares to the upper moons? Aoki said, one-on-one, you are no match for any upper moon. The pillars were silent. They were all extremely confident people and naturally did not want to accept this evaluation, but with such a tragic record just now, they had no confidence to refute it at all. Kanae had personally fought with the upper moons and had a deeper understanding of their strength than others, and was more accepting of this answer. Then, what about Muzan Kabutsuji? All of a sudden, everyone forgot other questions and looked at Aoki with burning eyes. Whether it was face or confidence, everything was not worth mentioning in front of the name Muzan Kabutsuji. Even Ubuyashiki Kagaya showed an expectant look. Although they regarded Muzan Kabutsuji as their mortal enemy, they knew very little about him. Any bit of information was invaluable. Muzan Kabutsuji? Aoki smiled and said, if you all attack together, Muzan Kabutsuji will not even need 1/10 of his strength to easily defeat you. He did not know how strong Muzan Kabutsuji was. Anyway, after aging for thousands of years, Muzan could still beat almost all the pillars with ninja swords to the point of death in an extremely short period of time. Now, even if these pillars attack together, they cannot pose any threat to Muzan Kabutsuji. Everyone fell into a deeper silence, and the yard became so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. After a while, Kagaya was the first to recover, his tone calm and firm. I didn't expect the gap to be so big, but I believe that as long as we keep working hard, one day, we will definitely defeat Muzan Kabutsuji. That's right, Muzan must die. Aoki nodded, his tone full of murderous intent. Kagaya smiled, Mr. Aomura, we have a common goal and should help each other. Of course. Aoki responded readily. This was originally his purpose, there was nothing to hesitate about. The pillars were silent, no one spoke up to object, obviously they had discussed this issue and reached a consensus. Aoki also found that after the competition, the hostility of these pillars towards him suddenly decreased a lot. Is this considered a fight without acquaintance? Nothing is more convincing than facts. If he really had bad intentions, the Demon Slayer Corps would have suffered heavy casualties, especially Ubuyashiki Kagaya, who would have died long ago. Afterwards, Aoki and Ubuyashiki Kagaya discussed the details of the cooperation. The main thing is that the Demon Slayer Corps provides intelligence, and Aoki is responsible for processing it. He is considered a special non-staff member of the Demon Slayer Corps. Aoki also shared some of the information he had with them. Regarding the second upper moon, he is the founder of the Eternal Paradise, which is a small church with only about 250 followers. The pillars all showed great interest. Although Aomura said that they are not the opponent of the upper moon in a one-on-one fight, it doesn't matter. If they can't beat them in a one-on-one fight, they can just fight in a group. There is no need to talk about martial ethics with demons. Ubuyashiki Kagaya said, Eternal Paradise? Okay, this is a very important clue. We will start an investigation immediately. When we have news, we will notify Mr. Aomura immediately. Aoki nodded with satisfaction. With the help of the Demon Slayer Corps' intelligence system, he can find prey for himself. This was the purpose of his trip. Ubuyashiki Kagaya asked, anything else, Mr. Aomura? Aoki thought for a moment and said, there is another private matter. I would like to ask the Demon Slayer Corps to help me find a charcoal boy named Tanjiro Kamado. He is about 12 years old this year, with dark red hair and red eyes, a scar on the left forehead, and always wears a green ikamatsu pattern feather webbing. The power of the Demon Slayer Corps should not be wasted. He is not afraid of the Demon Slayer Corps finding out anything, Now Tanjiro is just an ordinary charcoal boy. Who would have thought that he has the strongest talent for being a demon, has seen blue spider lilies, and has mastered the breathing of the sun? Kagaya asked, Tanjiro Kamado? Mr. Aomura, is he your relative? Several pillars also quietly pricked up their ears. They know a lot about what happened after Aomura became a demon, but they know nothing about his identity before his death. This may be an opportunity to understand him. Aoki shook his head, no. I just want to find him to inquire about something. Everyone knew that there was something strange about this, but now the two sides are in a cooperative relationship. Aomura is unwilling to say, and they can't force it. But it doesn't matter. If they can find the boy named Tanjiro Kamado, they can investigate first. This wasn't a violation of the agreement. Tanjiro's family lives in the mountains and makes a living by burning and selling charcoal. He is the eldest son in the family, and has 5 younger brothers and sisters. His father may have passed away. Aoki briefly introduced Tanjiro's situation, and finally looked at Ju. Tanjiro's family may be in the area you are responsible for. Tomioka Ju was stunned and nodded silently, okay. Chapter 60, Test, Extra Chapter. In a simply furnished room, Kagaya sat in front of him, while Amain tended to him from the side. Gyomii, Sanemi, Ju, and Tengen were seated across from each other. Ahem, cough, cough, how do you feel? Kagaya coughed twice. Strong, really strong. Moreover, my blood has no effect. Sanemi's expression was extremely serious. The 5 pillars joined forces and were unable to fight back against Aoki. The cruel fact was like the cold wind in deep winter, making his heart feel cold. Although they did not unleash their greatest potential because it was not a life-or-death battle, why did their opponent go all out? Gyomii clasped his hands together. This time I was holding everyone back. As the strongest member of the Demon Slayer Corps, he had become the most useless person. There is nothing we can do about it. His ability is too well suited to restrain you, Mr. Himejima. Tengen touched his hair. I don't know if it's my imagination, but I feel like he can see through our moves. I also have this feeling. Ju put his hands on his legs and said calmly, when I was about to use combat skills, all my movements were seen through. The room fell silent. Sanemi clenched his fists and said slowly, his ability activates without any warning, the interval is very short, and it can be used continuously. Until we find a way to counter this ability, there is absolutely nothing we can do against him. Ubuyashiki Kagaya said gently, Mr. Aomura is now our partner. There is no need to consider this issue anymore. Yes, the 4 of them said in unison. The street was quiet at night, and 2 figures, a man and a woman, were walking slowly. They both looked under 20 years old. The man was tall, heroic, and handsome, with a pair of golden vertical eyes that attracted attention even at night. The woman was tall and beautiful, gentle as water, and had a temperament that made people want to get close to her. Mr. Aomura, what do you think about using poison? Huh? What? Aoki, who was reviewing the battle just now, was a little unable to react. Kanae raised her lavender eyes. According to Mr. Aomura's description, Kibutsuji Muzan is too strong. In a head-on battle, even if we gather all our strength, I'm afraid we won't be his opponent. Aoki nodded. Kanae's guess was correct. The current Demon Slayer Corps was no match for Kibutsuji Muzan. Kanae said, so I thought, can I use poison to weaken Kibutsuji Muzan? My sister lacks wrist strength and is not good at slashing, so she uses poison to increase her damage. But I don't know if poison has any effect on Muzan Kibutsuji. Of course it works, but it's impossible to kill Muzan Kibutsuji with poison alone. As long as you give him enough time, he can decompose any poison, Aoki said. He had no plans to introduce Tamayo to the Demon Slayer Corps for the time being. The Demon Slayer Corps' hatred for demons runs deep into their bones. He could guarantee his own safety, but Tamayo and Yushiro didn't have much ability to protect themselves. The current situation, unlike the original work, is not so urgent that they must put aside all their grudges and work together. It's best to wait until both parties have established further trust. It doesn't matter, just weaken him and find another opportunity to cut his neck. It's useless to chop the neck. Muzan Kibutsuji has already exceeded his limit long ago, and even a severed head can be regenerated. So, if you want to kill him, you can only rely on sunlight? Kanae's expression looked a little heavy. That was indeed the case before, but now, even a level 2 demon devouring has a chance. Thoughts flashed through Aoki's mind. Of course, the premise is that he can cause enough damage to Kibutsuji Muzan. If he can't touch him, the level 2 demon devouring will not be effective. Kanae sighed, it's really scary, even despairing. I can't help but think, with our power, can we really eliminate Kibutsuji Muzan? Aoki said, actually, the strongest person that has ever appeared in this world is not Muzan Kibutsuji, but a swordsman who uses the breathing method. Kocho Kanae quickly reacted, a user of the initial breath? Aoki nodded. Yurichi, the chosen son, almost killed Kibutsuji Muzan with his sword. After being heavily weakened, Kibutsuji Muzan still beat everyone, but Yurichi almost killed him in seconds with every move he made. The sword wound left behind has not completely healed for hundreds of years. Why is there such a big gap between us pillars and initial breathing users? Kanae said blankly, I can feel that my strength is close to the limit. If I continue to train, my strength may improve, but it is not certain whether I can catch up with Mr. Himejima, and I cannot compete with Mr. Aomura at all. Don't talk about your limits lightly, your potential is far more than that, Aoki said. Patterns are the key, as they can greatly improve physical fitness, allowing the pillars to truly have the strength to challenge the upper moons. Swordsmanship is based on grip strength. Although there is no evidence, before awakening the mark, the grip strength should be difficult to reach the standard. Transparent World is a plugin that only a few people can master and cannot be considered a regular force. Contemporary pillars should all have the potential to awaken their marks, but the first person to awaken their marks is the key. There seems to be a switch in this world. After the first person with the mark appears, the switch is turned on, and the people around can also get the mark as if by resonance. In this generation, the first person to awaken the mark is Tanjiro. He is still an ordinary charcoal boy now. The time for the Demon Slayer core to take off has yet to come. However, Kanae didn't know this and only thought that Mr. Aomura was comforting her, with a gentle smile on her face. Don't worry, Mr. Aomura, I won't be defeated. Mr. Aomura's agreement to cooperate is a great encouragement to me. As long as we unite and never give up, we will be able to defeat Muzan Kibutsuji one day. If one person can't beat him, we will go together. If we are not a match for him head-on, we will use poison. If we can't kill him by beheading, we will drag him into the sun. There must be a way. Aoki smiled and didn't continue to discuss this topic. So he changed the subject. I didn't expect this time to go so smoothly. I thought you would be more wary of me. Kanae smiled embarrassedly. Before this, we carefully investigated Mr. Aomura's deeds, and we tested it during the battle. Huh? Aoki was surprised. Test? What test? Why didn't I notice? The smile in Kanae's eyes became more charming. Mr. Shinazugawa, the one with white hair and many scars on his body, actually has a rare blood constitution, and his blood has a strong attraction to demons. During the battle, he deliberately cut his arm and bled a lot, but Mr. Aomura did not react at all. Combined with the situation we investigated before, it is basically confirmed that you, Mr. Aomura, really don't need to eat people. Rare blood. Aoki suddenly realized. He knew that Sanemi had very strong rare blood, which not only had a strong attraction to demons, but also could make demons who smelled it drunk. However, he did not feel anything unusual during the battle, so naturally, he did not notice their little test. After the battle, the hostility of the pillars decreased a lot. He originally thought it was just because he showed mercy in the battle, but he did not expect that there was a test. Chapter 61, Shinobu Kocho's Challenge. Kanae Kocho and Shinobu Kocho were born into a pharmacist family and possess superb medical skills. After joining the Demon Slayer Corps, the two founded the Butterfly House. In addition to hunting demons, they were also responsible for treating injured members of the Demon Slayer Corps. Now the Butterfly House has become the most important medical institution within the Corps. Kanae Kocho is the owner of the Butterfly House, with Shinobu Kocho assisting her sister in treating the wounded. They are also supported by a girl named Aoi Kanzaki, who serves as a nurse. Not long ago, Kanae and Shinobu picked up a little girl and named her Kanao Tsuyuri, who is currently living in the Butterfly House. Additionally, there are some hidden members who help out. The Hidden is a special organization within the Demon Slayer Corps, composed of members who have no combat talent. They are responsible for post-battle cleanup and other support roles. Although Aoki already knew this information, he still listened carefully to Kanae's introduction and finally said, "Then I'm sorry to bother you for the next period of time." According to the agreement between him and Ubuyashiki Kagaya, he will temporarily live in the Butterfly House and wait for information from the Demon Slayer Corps. "Mr. Aomura is my savior, there's no need to be so formal," Kanae smiled and waved to Shinobu and others who were walking toward them. "This is my sister Shinobu Kocho, whom you've already met. The rest." Kanae introduced Aoki to the main members of the Butterfly House. Aoi Kanzaki was very busy, so she said hello and left quickly. Kanao Tsuyuri sat beside them with a smile, listening silently like a delicate doll without self-awareness. Shinobu, who knew something, asked about the meeting between Aoki and Ubuyashiki Kagaya. After hearing the result of their competition, Shinobu couldn't help but exclaim, "What? Sister, the five of you still lost together?" "Not only did we lose, but we lost miserably," Kanae said truthfully. Shinobu looked at Aoki, her face full of shock. She knew that Mr. Aomura was very strong, but she hadn't realized the extent. Understanding that he had overpowered all the pillars she was familiar with had a great impact on her mind. Suddenly, Shinobu stood up, staring at Aoki with burning eyes. "Mr. Aomura, can I feel your power too?" "Shinobu," Kanae said softly. "It doesn't matter, I am happy to spar with the strong, not only today, but as long as I live here, you can come to me anytime if you want to practice," Aoki said. He then looked at Kanae and added, "Miss Kanae, including you and the other pillars, you are always welcome to challenge me." Kanae's eyes lit up. "Really? Mr. Aomura, will this bother you too much?" "Yes," Aoki nodded. Unlike most demons who rely on blood demon arts and fight on instinct, the pillars' moves are refined and their skills are very exquisite. Sparring with them will also be of great benefit to him in perfecting his own combat system. "Then I will thank Mr. Aomura on behalf of the Demon Slayer Corps," Kanae said solemnly. Being able to spar with a strong man like Mr. Aomura without life-threatening consequences is truly precious. It can also help the pillars adapt to the strength of the upper moons, increasing their chances of survival in real encounters. The cold moonlight sprinkled down. In the open space in the middle of the Butterfly House, Aoki and Shinobu stood opposite each other. Kanae and Kanao stood in front of the door, looking at the two people in the yard. "Mr. Aomura, do you really not need me to remove the poison?" Shinobu asked seriously. "It's okay, just come at me," Aoki said. "Then I won't hold back." A flame seemed to rise in Shinobu's eyes. Dance of the bee sting, true flutter. Her special long sword turned into a black streak as it quickly aimed at Aoki's face, a light blue glow flashing at the tip. Her speed was impressive, and this move often took her opponents by surprise. Since she developed it, no demon had been able to dodge it. However, Aoki merely turned his head slightly. The sword tip passed by his face, and he took a step forward, gently pushing with his hand. Bang! Shinobu flew back, landing and gliding a distance, before stopping. She looked up at Aoki with a very serious expression. "It's like this again," Kanae stared at Aoki intently. In the previous battle, she felt that Mr. Aomura could always accurately judge their moves, seeing through them as soon as they were made. Now, as a bystander, this feeling was even stronger. "Go on." Aoki waved his hand. Shinobu took a deep breath. He was really strong, but she would not give up. Dance of the Centipede, 100-legged zigzag. Shinobu leapt forward, each landing, causing the soil under her feet to explode. The sound of drums echoed in the yard, with terrifying momentum. Unfortunately, in the transparent world, all her movements were visible. Dang dang dang. The two fought quickly, their figures becoming blurred under the cover of night. With a bang, a huge force surged, and Shinobu could no longer control it. Her sword flew out of her hand. Oops, she thought inwardly, her pupils shrinking. A fist appeared, quickly enlarging and occupying her entire field of vision. No. I will die. I will definitely die. Quick. Find a way to block it or dodge it. No. There is no way. Shinobu closed her eyes subconsciously. Boom. A strong wind swept past, blowing her hair. Shinobu opened her eyes blankly, looking at the fist that stopped in front of her nose, memories flooding her mind. She almost forgot this was just a sparring match. Aoki put away his fist. Let's stop here. Shinobu looked at him, absent-minded. She was not surprised she lost. The 5 pillars together couldn't defeat Mr. Aomura, how could she win alone? However, she did not expect to lose so badly. No wonder he said there was no need to remove the poison, Shinobu thought, looking complicated. From beginning to end, she couldn't hurt him at all, not even having the chance to inject poison. Aoki praised, although your strength is lacking, your speed is very good, especially the straight piercing, which is faster than some pillars. Due to her petite figure, Shinobu's wrist strength was insufficient, and she wasn't good at slashing, but her thrusting force was strong, original evaluation. With the help of poison, her fighting ability was outstanding. She represented weak strength and strong fighting power. Thank you, Shinobu said, her face still serious. She picked up her long sword silently, her back looking a bit aggrieved and lonely. Did I hit too hard? Aoki touched his chin. Shinobu was only 14 years old, with a childish face. He felt like he was bullying a child. Mr. Aomura, don't worry. Shinobu is just like that, Kanae said. Aoki retracted his attention. Miss Kanae, do you want to try too? Okay, Kanae agreed happily. A moment later, in the courtyard of the butterfly house, the battle started again. Chapter 62, Beautiful Student Girl, Extra Chapter. The warm light dispelled the darkness, filling the room with a faint scent of tea. Aoki, the Kocho sisters, and Kanao Tsuyuri sat opposite each other, discussing the recent battle. Kanao's flower breathing is derived from water breathing, and her moves are well honed, but she still needs to fine-tune her technique according to her own characteristics. Shinobu's insect breathing is a method she created based on flower breathing, but it is still a bit rough. Aoki's Aoki style is also just a semi-finished product. The Butterfly Sisters are experienced and have solid theoretical knowledge, while Aoki's transparent world ability provides meticulous observations. The characteristics of both parties complement each other, and they gained a lot from their discussions and mutual verification. After reviewing the day's lessons, Aoki noticed that Kanao and Shinobu were still deep in thought. He turned his attention to the girl who had been sitting silently beside him, Kanao Tsuyuri. Kanao Tsuyuri, the adopted sister of Kanae and Shinobu, hadn't spoken a word since Aoki arrived at the butterfly house. Kanao is a very pitiful child. She was abused by her parents since she was young. She didn't even have a name and was eventually sold to human traffickers, Kanae said, her gentle voice full of pity. Because of her childhood experiences, she dares not think actively, cannot express her feelings, and won't even eat without orders. Kanao Tsuyuri was indeed unfortunate, born into an extremely bad family, but she was also lucky to meet the Butterfly Sisters. Has she learned breathing techniques? Aoki asked. Kanae's purple, gem-like eyes glinted as she replied, Kanao is learning flower breathing from me. She has excellent talent. Kanao has a pair of special eyes, and her vision is far superior to that of ordinary people. She can predict an opponent's next move by observing subtle movements of their shoulders, sight, fingertips, elbows, knees, etc. It feels like a weakened version of the transparent world, Aoki mused, touching his chin. The transparent world is one of the ultimate abilities in this world, but very few can achieve it. Some individuals, however, can have similar abilities through various methods, such as Akaza's compass needle, the sound pillar Yuzuitingen's musical score, and Kanao's eyes. Still, these abilities are far from the true transparent world. At this moment, Aoki noticed Kanae's eager expression and suddenly understood. He smiled. From today on, let's set aside some time for Kanao to study with me, he said. Consider it payment for accommodation. Besides, it's not bad to have a beautiful girl as a student. Thank you, Mr. Aomura, Kanae smiled. I shouldn't bother you, but we really can't find anyone else with such abilities. It's not surprising, currently, the only ones who have mastered the transparent world are me and Kokashibo, Aoki replied, shaking his head. As for abilities like compass needle and musical score, their effects are somewhat similar, but their principles are completely different. The night grew darker. Aoki didn't need to sleep, but Kanae and the others were just mortals. After reaching an agreement, they went to rest. Lying in his room, feeling this long-lost free time, Aoki felt a little uncomfortable. He had almost forgotten what it felt like to sleep. After becoming a demon, the only time he slept was the night he escaped from Mount Fuji. Chased by 2 lower moons, he fought desperately with boiling blood, exhausting his physical and mental strength until he lost consciousness and passed out. A moment later, Aoki got up from the bed. He didn't need to sleep, so lying in bed was a waste of time. It would be better to get up and practice. After this period of fighting, especially after sparring with the pillars, he had some inspiration in his mind and might create another move or two. The next day. As soon as Aoki walked out of his room, he stopped in astonishment, seeing the girl outside the door. Kanao Tsuyuri bowed gently, her voice soft and sticky, "Teacher. When did you come?" Aoki asked, noticing the dew on the corner of her clothes. She had been there for quite a while. He had been immersed in cultivation and hadn't noticed the movement outside. Teacher Kanao repeated, bowing again. She had lost the ability to think for herself and could only follow orders. "Follow me," Aoki said, waving his hand and walking forward. Kanao followed closely. In the room, Aoki and Kanao sat opposite each other, with a table full of cups between them, each cup numbered differently. "Today, let's play a game first," Aoki said. "The rules are simple. One person chooses a cup, and the other guesses the number. There is only one chance in each round of the game. See who guesses faster and more accurately." Kanao didn't say anything, but she was very smart and understood the rules after hearing them once. Shinobu, who was sitting on the side, wondered, "What's the use of this?" "It can train your eyesight and predictive ability, but the most important thing is that I can judge Kanao's level through this game," Aoki explained. Shinobu didn't say anything else, but quietly prepared to participate secretly. "Kanao, you choose the cup first," Aoki said. Kanao's face remained expressionless as she prepared to grab cup number 3. "Number 3," Aoki said. Kanao paused, then looked at cup number 9 from the corner of her eye. "Number 9," Aoki guessed. "Number 1. Number 6. After 10 rounds, Kanao's empty eyes were filled with a ripple of emotion. Shinobu slammed the table and stood up. "Wait a minute. This is too weird. Kanao hasn't moved yet. How did you guess it?" She had wanted to secretly compete and see who could guess faster and more accurately. But she didn't even get a chance to guess. If you wait until there is obvious movement before guessing, what's the point? Aoki replied. Shinobu turned to Kanao, "Did he guess right?" Kanao nodded slightly. "It's my turn to choose now." "Kanao, watch carefully," Aoki said. Kanao's face remained emotionless, but Shinobu clenched her fists and stared at Aoki intently. After 10 rounds, Kanao's eyes showed faint doubt, and Shinobu had an expression of disbelief. "How did you do it?" Shinobu asked. The two of them together hadn't guessed correctly even once, which was too outrageous. "In short, I used small moves to deceive your eyes," Aoki explained, then looked at Kanao. "Your logical judgment is fine, but you need to pay attention not only to the details, but also to the overall situation. The fake moves I used are very similar in detail, but from the overall situation, you can find the flaws. Judging the opponent's actions through subtle changes sounds difficult, but it's even more challenging to do accurately. The key lies in precision. If you can't make accurate judgments, the prediction might have a negative effect." Shinobu listened carefully. Although she didn't have the special vision like Kanao, it didn't mean this knowledge was useless. Aoki didn't mind her eavesdropping. Chapter 63, New Occupation, Martial Artist. Aoki spent a pleasant day with his little apprentice. Night falls. Aoki sat in the yard, waiting silently. After Butterfly Kanae reported that he was willing to spar with the Hashira, it was said that all the Hashira showed considerable enthusiasm. Today, the first pillar is coming. Boom, boom, boom. Slightly heavy footsteps sounded, growing clearer and clearer from far to near. Soon, an extremely tall young monk walked in. Aoki raised his eyes. "Oh? Is the first one the heaviest? Long wait." Ba. Jyomiai Himejima clasped his hands together. The rock pillar, Jyomiai Himejima, was undoubtedly the strongest member of the contemporary Demon Slayer corps. He was a true genius, with no shortcomings in terms of physical fitness, mental will, and understanding. He was also one of the few people who could master the transparent world. If Space Shuttle hadn't exerted great restraint on him, Aoki wouldn't have won the previous battle so easily. "Please enlighten me." Aoki stood up and assumed the Aoki-style starting position without further ado. Jyomiai also took out his own weapons, a broad axe and a meteor hammer, connected by a long chain. Kanae, Shinobu, and Kanao appeared quietly and watched from a distance. Boom. They both moved at the same time. Jyomiai swung his chain and slashed at Aoki with the whistling axe. Aoki kicked off, bent his body at an obtuse angle to dodge the axe, and continued to rush towards Jyomiai. He did not intend to use Space Shuttle. The purpose of sparring with the Hashira was to gain combat experience. Using Space Shuttle to overpower opponents would be pointless. Despite his powerful strength and the transparent world, Aoki easily suppressed Jyomiai. However, he deliberately controlled his power and did not end the fight quickly. Jyomiai had practiced the Breath of Stone to the extreme, perfecting his moves and demonstrating impeccable fighting awareness and skills. He was an excellent learning opponent. Aoki gradually became immersed in the battle, his strength growing and his moves becoming fiercer. Jyomiai struggled more as the fight progressed. His moves were quickly read by Aoki, and no matter how they changed, they couldn't escape Aoki's sight. His physical exertion was increasing. Suddenly, Aoki's fist passed through Jyomiai's defense. Boom! Jyomiai was thrown back and spat out a mouthful of blood. Today. Aoki began to speak but was interrupted by a familiar voice in his mind. Ding dong. Aoki was stunned. What happened? There was no demon killing, no upgrade. Where was the system prompt? Congratulations, you have obtained the profession martial artist. Huh? A new career? Aoki was excited and quickly opened the system, revealing a brand new page. Martial artist. Quality. Level, LV1, 0/100. Skills, martial arts heart, yet to learn, combat intuition, yet to learn, body control, yet to learn, indomitable will, yet to learn. Martial artist. Aoki muttered to himself. Initially, when he only had the hunter profession, he considered finding ways to acquire many professions to gain skills and attributes. However, after taking up the role of White Walker, he abandoned this idea. Hunter is a half-star profession. Other professions, such as doctors, teachers, soldiers, etc., if they exist, are most likely also half-star. It took him more than half a year to reach the full level of hunter, earning a total of 2 free attribute points. When a White Walker levels up, it grants 2 attribute points. With the attributes given by demon blood, the improvement from 1 White Walker is equivalent to the sum of dozens of half-star professions. Compared to White Walker, the pay-to-reward ratio of a half-star career is dismal. The skill intensity of half-star professions is limited. Several hunter skills were useful early on but became less effective as he grew stronger. For example, Eagle Eye provided a fixed value bonus to vision, which was no longer necessary for him. However, this is not absolute. For instance, Hunting Instinct improved his ability to identify prey traces, which is still useful. But it wasn't worth spending a lot of time and energy seeking half-star professions for such minor improvements. Thus, he did not deliberately collect half-star professions and focused entirely on White Walker. Demons are not permanent. Following the original trajectory of this world, demons would disappear in 4 years. Without demons, he wouldn't be able to upgrade, and the 2-star profession of White Walker would become useless. Acquiring multiple professions and gaining numerous skills and attributes is a valid strategy, but the goal should be extraordinary careers, not half-star ones, such as demons or breathing swordsmen. Certainly, after White Walker reaches full level and Muzan Kabutsuji is defeated, bringing peace to the world, he could try to collect some half-star professions. 2 attribute points are still an improvement. He welcomed professions like martial artist that awaken automatically without extra effort. The name of this profession also intrigued him. Aoki carefully examined the skills of martial artist, and his surprise grew stronger. All 4 skills were passive. Martial arts heart increases talent for learning and creating martial arts moves. Combat intuition enhances decision-making in battle, increasing combat talent. Body control improves control of strength, coordination, flexibility, and other effects. Indomitable will enhances mental resilience. The more you fight, the stronger you become. Similar to Hunter, the skills of martial artist do not directly increase martial arts levels but improve his talent and set a higher ceiling. Comparing Hunter and White Walker, Aoki gained a clearer understanding. Half-star professions do not involve extraordinary power, and their skills focus on improving capabilities. In this way, martial artist was the most suitable half-star profession for him. Despite having established his own combat system, he was still lacking in combat awareness and skills compared to Akaza, Gyomii, and other skilled masters. Akaza had practiced for hundreds of years, and the pillars built upon the achievements of their predecessors, enduring long and rigorous training. Catching up with them wasn't easy. Now, there was finally a chance. The skills of the martial artist, especially the first 3, were designed to enhance combat skills. The bonus of the martial artist to his strength would far exceed that of the hunter. 64. The Heart of Martial Arts and Mission. Gyomii Himejima stood up and turned to look at Aoki with a puzzled expression. What happened? He was the one who got hurt, so why wasn't Aoki moving? Kanae and Shinobu were equally confused. However, none of them disturbed Aoki. They even controlled their movements to avoid making noise and affecting him. Aoki's attention was still on his newly acquired profession, martial artist. The way a martial artist gains experience is through combat. Interestingly, you only need to fight, there's no requirement to win, let alone kill the enemy. The more intense the battle, the more experience you can gain. This profession seemed tailor-made for him. The most powerful martial artists in the world were right beside him, waiting in line to compete. Aoki pondered further. But why did this profession appear today? Was it because I wasn't good enough before? The hunter profession appeared after he learned some basic hunting skills. Both are half-star professions, so the requirements for martial artist must be higher than for hunter, right? The reason must be more than this. Another thought struck Aoki. Is it the mentor? He was introduced to hunting by his master, the the best first-class hunter in the world. His first martial arts teacher was Keisuke Akiyama. Although Akiyama was competent, he was far from a master. Before this, Aoki had experienced many battles and met many strong warriors, but he had never communicated with them directly. That changed recently. He sparred with Kanae, communicated with other Hashira, and had just fought Gyomii. So, obtaining a half-star profession might require both an excellent mentor and a certain level of proficiency. Brother Keisuke made a mistake. Aoki sighed deeply and shut down the system. He noticed he was still in his punching posture, and Butterfly Kanae and the others were watching him. Ahem, why didn't you remind me? As a demon, he had strong recovery abilities, so maintaining an awkward posture didn't cause soreness. He hadn't realized there was something wrong with his stance. Gyomii clasped his hands together. I thought that was Mr. Aomura's unique way of thinking, ba. Aoki. He didn't understand, but he respected it. After obtaining martial artist, Aoki became more active in sparring with the Hashira. A week passed in the blink of an eye. What a gorgeous battle. Yuzui Tengen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked solemnly at his unscathed opponent. It wasn't that his wounds healed, he never hurt Aoki from beginning to end, not even once. The huge gap in strength was terrifying. Aoki, a bit slow to react, cupped his hands and said, I agree. Shinobu walked towards them, complaining, next time, fight outside. There's too much noise. The patients can't even rest. Ha ha ha, tell Kanae I have something else to do and leave first. Tengen jumped up and disappeared out the door in an instant. He made most of the noise. Explosives were part of his combat strategy and couldn't be used sparingly. In fact, he had been very restrained. While there is still time, let's have a fight. Shinobu looked at Aoki, showing her high fighting spirit. Wait a moment. Aoki waved his hand and opened the system. Ding dong. Congratulations on your upgrade. This was the system prompt just now and the reason for his slow reaction. Name, Aoki. Strength, 18. Physique, 17. Intelligence, 18. Agility, 18. Occupation, hunter, White Walker, martial artist. White Walker. Quality. Level, LV13, 12/1300. Skills, Demon Blood 4, Space Shuttle, Transparent World, Demon Devouring 2. Mission, The Last Day of Upper Moons, January 3rd. Martial Artist. Quality. Level, LV2, 9/200. Skills, Martial Arts Heart, Yet to Learn, Combat Intuition, Yet to Learn, Body Control, Yet to Learn, Indomitable Will, Yet to Learn. Free skill points, 1. No attribute points were obtained. For half-star professions, only level 2 grants 1 attribute point. He gained only 1 skill point, but all 4 skills could be learned. Compared to White Walker skills that require 4 or 5 points to learn, it was disappointing. It's worth noting that attribute points obtained from all professions are the same, but skill points cannot be mixed. Each profession's skill points can only be used for its own skills. Aoki looked at the 4 skills under Martial Artist. Which one should I learn? All 4 skills were good. After a little hesitation, he chose Martial Arts Heart. The talent for creating and improving moves was what he needed most now. Skills that aid growth should be learned as soon as possible. After adding the points, he didn't feel any different. However, with the hunter experience, he knew his talent had changed. Ka, ka, ka. At this time a shrill cry sounded. West. There is a demon in the west harming people. Please deal with it immediately. A black crow hovered in the sky. Aoki reacted immediately. A mission? This was the crow sent to him by the Demon Slayer Corps. Out of fear or disgust, it rarely appeared in front of him. It seems we can't fight today, Aoki said to Shinobu. Not only today, there would likely be very few opportunities to compete with the Hashira in the future. however, he wasn't disappointed. Improving the level of White Walker was more important than martial artist. Since learning to see through the world, he hadn't had a real battle apart from a brief fight with Doma. He was eager to test the results of his cultivation. There's nothing we can do about it. Shinobu looked even more regretful. I'm going to change clothes first. Aoki greeted her and entered the room. Besides the turtles, the demon slayers also prepared uniforms for him. The uniforms are made of special fiber, moisture-proof, cold-proof, and breathable. They can withstand extreme temperatures and weak demon attacks. Although these functions didn't mean much to him, as a demon, wearing the demon slayer uniform was interesting in itself. Aoki quickly changed clothes and found Shinobu still outside, joined by Kanae and Kanao. Seeing Aoki in the uniform, their eyes brightened. Kanae pursed her lips and chuckled, "This outfit suits Mr. Aoki very well." Shinobu nodded, "He is indeed handsome." "Am I not handsome usually?" Aoki joked and waved. "I'm off. Teacher." Kanao's voice was very soft. Aoki looked toward her. Please pay attention to your safety." Her beautiful big eyes were filled with nervousness. "I will." A smile appeared on Aoki's face. He waved and disappeared into the yard. Kanae took Kanao's hand and smiled. "Don't worry, Kanao. Anyone may encounter danger during missions, except Mr. Aoki." Shinobu added, "The only one who poses a threat to him is Muzan Kabutsuji. Even Muzan can't do anything to him with his ability to move." The three of them chatted and turned to leave. Chapter 65, Humans and Demons. In the luxurious manor, more than a dozen people surrounded Yuma Mizuno and Kei Takamoto, all holding weapons. The atmosphere was very tense. "Everyone, listen to me. The evil spirit in this house is a man-eater and has killed many people." Yuma Mizuno, a young man with long hair, had an ordinary appearance but very determined eyes. A tall, rough man with a sinewy face held a bright long knife and cursed, "Get out. We don't need outsiders interfering in our affairs. Leave quickly, or we won't be polite. You are aiding the evildoers." Kei Takamoto frowned. The evil spirit was in the front room, and it was still daytime. This was the best chance to get rid of it. But because of these people's obstruction, he couldn't take action. "What did you say?" The rough man's face darkened, and the other's eyes became dangerous. Mizuno pulled Takamoto. "Let's go outside and talk." Although Kei Takamoto was unwilling, he had no choice but to give up. After the two left, the rough man turned around and entered the back room with a flattering smile. "Master, we drove them away." A huge shadow lurked in the room, and a harsh voice sounded, "Demon slayers." Time passed and night fell. Yuma Mizuno and Kei Takamoto were hiding in a corner, their faces full of distress. They looked at each other and sighed. They thought it was just an ordinary mission but didn't expect to encounter such an unexpected situation. "Have the people from headquarters sent for support arrived yet?" Mizuno looked up at the sky. "It should be soon." Takamoto had a mohawk hairstyle and an unruly temperament, now almost completely destroyed by his distressed expression. After a while, Mizuno couldn't sit still. "No. It's already dark. That demon might act. We have to keep an eye on it." He regretted alerting the snake during the day. But with insufficient information, they had no idea things would be like this. Takamoto suggested, "Then we'll divide into two groups." "Caw-caw." A crow's call interrupted his words. They were stunned for a moment, then expressions of surprise appeared on their faces. "Have reinforcements from headquarters arrived?" They came just in time. A gust of wind passed by, and a figure appeared beside them. Aoki looked at the team uniforms the two wore. "Yuma Mizuno and Kei Takamoto?" "Yes, it's us." Mizuno nodded repeatedly. Suddenly, his eyes widened. He pulled Takamoto back 2 steps and looked at Aoki in horror. You are..." Aoki's expression remained unchanged, and he waved to the crow in the sky. Knowing this was a support mission, he had guessed this would happen. Enjoying the convenience of the demon slayer intelligence, he naturally had to endure corresponding troubles. Aoki is a demon and a cooperative ally. The crow flapped its wings. After listening to the explanation, Mizuno and Takamoto relaxed but were still wary. Naturally, Aoki wouldn't argue with them. "Tell me about the mission," he said directly. When it came to business, both of them perked up and became serious. Yuma Mizuno explained, "We received a mission to investigate rumors of an evil spirit eating people here. After 2 days of investigation, we found traces of a demon, but just when we were about to act, an accident happened." With a bitter expression, he briefly described the situation they encountered during the day. Encountered human obstruction? Aoki didn't make a fuss. In the eyes of demons, humans are food, but some demons take advantage of humans. "Have you found out what happened?" he asked. The two nodded. The situation wasn't complicated. The people had a cooperative relationship with the demon, collecting food for it, and the demon eliminated their opponents. Aoki's expression turned a bit strange. "Those people don't have the surname Iguro, right?" "Iguro?" Mizuno was startled, shook his head, and said, "No, their surname is Doihara." "That's right. They behave differently from the Iguro family. The Iguro family should have been destroyed long ago." Aoki shook his head. "Do you have more information about the Doihara family?" "Yes." Yuma Mizuno nodded. They hadn't wasted time during the day. The Doihara family wasn't a single family but a gang composed of people with different surnames, a gang of criminals. The leader and several key members were named Doihara. "They're all evil," Aoki said thoughtfully. According to their intelligence, the Doihara group was suspected of dozens of deaths. They all deserved to be sent to the gallows. "What should we do now?" "It's already dark, we'd better act quickly." Yuma Mizuno looked anxious. Although the reinforcement being a demon was unexpected, they had no choice but to believe him. "Let's go." "Take us to find that demon," Aoki said. The two were slightly stunned. "Don't worry, I have a plan," Aoki reassured them. Yuma Mizuno and Kei Takamoto exchanged surprised looks. Faced with such a difficult situation, there was a solution so quickly. Although the identity of the reinforcements was strange, they seemed reliable. "Okay. Please follow me," Yuma Mizuno said hurriedly. A moment later, the three of them arrived at the west side of the town, where a vast and luxurious manor stood. "Is it here?" Aoki asked, looking at the magnificent gate of the manor. "Yes." Kei Takamoto touched his hair. Doihara and his gang relied on the power of the demon to collect a lot of wealth. They are the richest people in this town. Aoki sniffed lightly. "What a strong smell of blood." Yuma Mizuno and Kei Takamoto were shocked. "Blood smell? Has someone been killed again?" Their expressions suddenly turned very ugly. Unexpectedly, they were still a step late. Aoki said, "Such a strong smell of blood cannot be produced by the death of just 1 or 2 people. More than 1 or 2 people died?" Their faces turned pale. Although they didn't kill the people, they felt responsible. If they had killed the demon during the day, this wouldn't have happened. "Things may not be as bad as you think." Aoki simply comforted them and walked forward. The gate of the manor was closed. He didn't open it but jumped directly over the wall. Yuma Mizuno and Kei Takamoto forced themselves to cheer up and followed. Chapter 66, Plan. The manor was quiet. The lights in many rooms were on, and there were even torches that had been lit not long ago in the courtyard, but there was no sound in the entire area. "It does smell of blood," Yuma Mizuno's tone was low, with obvious self-blame. Kei Takamoto's spirits were slightly better, and he looked around cautiously. "What should we do next?" The die was cast. He knew the only thing they could do now was to kill the evil spirit and prevent further victims. find the demon and kill it. This way. Aoki said and quickly walked toward the direction where the smell of blood came from. Takamoto opened his mouth, wanting to ask about the specific plan. But seeing that Aoki had gone far, he could only pull the despondent Mizuno and chase after him. Passing through a square, a tall black building appeared ahead. A tall, rough-looking man sat in front of the building. When he saw them, he immediately got up. "It's you again. How dare you come back?" His expression was ferocious, and his tone was filled with hatred. Mizunoya cheered up and quickly said, "He is the leader of this group, Doihara." Aoki asked, "How many are there?" "When we came during the day, there were more than a dozen people who blocked us. According to our investigation, their core members are at least 30, Mizuno replied. "No wonder there's such a strong smell of blood," Aoki said, looking past Doihara toward the back. The black building stood quietly in the middle of the lawn, its door closed and no lights, like a sleeping giant. The smell of blood wafted out from inside. Doihara slowly took out a gun from his pocket. "I originally planned to come find you, but I didn't expect you to come to me." Takamoto stepped forward and shouted, "Doihara, do you know what you're doing?" "Of course I know. I want to kill you," Doihara said seriously. Aoki stopped Takamoto, who wanted to say more. "Let me handle this." Takamoto glanced at him, nodded, and took 2 steps back. Aoki looked at Doihara. "Besides you, everyone else was eaten?" Mizuno and Takamoto were stunned, their eyes suddenly wide. Doihara was furious and aimed his gun at Aoki. "It's all because of you. You killed them." "Thank you," Aoki said. Doihara, Mizuno, and Takamoto were all stunned. Aoki added, "Sending you scumbags to hell is a great achievement. Thank you for sharing the credit." Doihara's expression twisted, and he was about to pull the trigger when... Poof! An arm stabbed into his chest, tearing out his heart. "After eradicating the evil, you should go with them," Aoki said. Doihara's eyes went from blank, to frightened, to unwilling, and finally to deathly silence as his body slowly fell. Mizuno and Takamoto were stunned. They hadn't expected Aoki to kill someone so suddenly. Bang! The door of the black building suddenly opened, and a huge figure slowly walked out, a harsh sound echoing through the night. "Jia jia jia, demon slayers, you're too late. I have already eaten." Poof! Sharp nails broke through the scaly skin, and the palms sank into his head, stopping the harsh sound abruptly. "Devour!" Aoki shouted softly, forming an invisible vortex with his palm at the center. The evil demon didn't even struggle as its body quickly twisted and decomposed, devoured by the invisible whirlpool. Kill a demon and gain 15 experience points. Huh? Only 15 experience points? Aoki was shocked. Judging from the aura, this demon wasn't weak. He originally expected to get more than 50 experience points, but it was only 15 points. Did I make a mistake in my prediction, or? Aoki had an ominous premonition. There could be errors in his predictions, but not by that much. Most likely, the experience gain had been greatly reduced. Furthermore, it doesn't even give me a single point of martial artist experience. Not surprising. Martial artists gain experience through combat. This wasn't a battle, just a one-sided massacre. Aoki turned off the system and walked toward Mizuno and Takamoto. "Okay, the matter is solved." The two looked confused, their mouths open, but saying nothing. After a moment of silence, Mizuno looked at the body on the ground. "What should we do with him? Isn't it handled by Een?" "No, I mean, you killed him, but we have rules." Mizuno was a little incoherent. Aoki said, "Don't worry, I killed him, you just need to report it truthfully. The Demon Slayer squad prohibits killing." But he wasn't part of the Demon Slayer Corps, he only had a cooperative relationship with them. He suspected that Kagaya specifically took this into account and asked him to handle this matter. Kagaya isn't a rigid person who doesn't know how to adapt, otherwise, he wouldn't do something as unconventional as letting a demon join the Demon Slayer Corps. Of course, it doesn't matter what the facts are. What he could be sure of was that Kagaya wouldn't turn against him because of this incident. When he was in Azabu, he personally slaughtered hundreds of people. The Demon Slayer Corps knew this very well. "I'm sorry to trouble you today." Aoki greeted the two and suddenly disappeared. Mizuno and Takamoto didn't come to their senses for a long time. So, what was the plan? Wasn't there a plan? Didn't he say it? Rush in, find the demons, and kill them. Well, you can add one more thing, kill those who block you. The two looked at each other and smiled bitterly. After another moment of silence, Mizuno suddenly said, "I think Doihara and his men really deserve to die. Over the years, at least dozens of people have been killed by them. They were more sinful than many demons." "I agree with you," Takamoto said without hesitation. "However, we must report this truthfully." Mizuno nodded. First, the body was there, and it was difficult to hide it even if they wanted to. Second, hiding the facts would only lead to bigger mistakes. "It is necessary to report truthfully," Takamoto said. "But we should also express our attitudes and opinions so that the Lord and others can understand the facts more clearly." "Let's do it." Mizuno took a deep breath. Doihara and his gang cooperated with the evil spirits or a demon, acted as accomplices, and harmed countless people. They are no different from the evil spirits. We all agree that killing them is the best way to deal with them. A moment later, the Black Crow quickly broke through the air with the information. Chapter 67, Difficulty in Leveling Up. ### Demon Slayer Corps Headquarters. Ubuyashiki Kagaya sat in the corridor, bathed in the moonlight. Ka. A crow flew into the yard and slowly landed beside him. Ubuyashiki Amane took the information carried by the crow, read it carefully, and said, "The demon in Hisayama has been successfully dealt with. Mr. Aomura's efficiency is amazing." Kagaya had a gentle smile on his face. Amane hesitated for a moment and said, "Mr. Aomura killed a human during the mission." "Who was it?" Kagaya's expression remained unchanged. Mrs. Amane briefly described Doihara and then said, "The two team members who initially took over the investigation mission expressed their attitudes in the report, believing the man deserved the punishment and supporting Mr. Aomura's approach." She read the words written by Mizuno and Takamoto in the report. "Indeed, he was a damned person," Kagaya nodded slightly. He had long known that Mr. Aomura's philosophy was not exactly the same as that of the Demon Slayer Corps. The Demon Slayer Corps is dedicated to killing demons and regards protecting humans as its duty. They do not easily attack humans or interfere in human conflicts. However, Mr. Aomura does not mind personally destroying evil. Regarding this matter, he does not think that Mr. Aomura did anything wrong, nor does he think he has the right to reprimand Mr. Aomura. Mizuno and Takamoto waited anxiously for the follow-up on Doihara's death. On the one hand, they defended the murderer and had to take some responsibility. On the other hand, they were also a little worried about the reinforcement whose name they did not even know in the end. However, the development of events was completely beyond their expectations. Time passed day by day. They were not held accountable, not punished, and no one even mentioned Doihara again. The two gradually forgot about this matter, only mentioning it occasionally when they reunited. Aoki was not surprised at all by Ubuyashiki Kagaya's decision. In the following days, he traveled around, becoming a demon slayer. With the information from the Demon Slayer Corps, his demon hunting efficiency increased significantly. However, the upgrade speed was not optimistic. Unfortunately, his previous guess came true. After reaching level 13, the experience gain dropped again. Kill a demon and gain 15 experience points. Aoki glanced at the system prompt, sighed secretly, and with a thought, the azure blue screen appeared in his field of vision. Name, Aoki. Strength, 19. Constitution, 18. Intelligence, 19. Agility, 19. Occupation, hunter, White Walker, martial artist. White Walker. Quality. Level, LV14, 87/1400. Skills, Demon Blood 4, Space Shuttle, Transparent World, Devourer 2. Mission, The Last Days of Upper Moon, January 3rd. Free skill points, 2. Martial artist. Quality. Level, LV3, 11/300. Skills, Heart of Martial Arts, Combat Instinct, Body Control, not learned yet, Indomitable Will, not learned yet. At this time, 3 months had passed since he reached a cooperation with the Demon Slayer Corps and started hunting demons. After 3 months of sleepless efforts, White Walker and Martial Artist each upgraded by 1 level. After Martial Artist was upgraded to level 3, he finally obtained 1 free attribute point, which Aoki added to his constitution. White Walker reached level 14 and gained 2 free attribute points, which he added to strength and intelligence respectively. In these 3 months, the accumulation of Demon Devourer also reached the requirements, and he gained 1 point of agility and 1 free skill point. Compared with 3 months ago, all his attributes have increased by 1 point, and his strength has risen to a new level. The free skill points have also accumulated to 2. It is expected that at level 15, he can learn the next skill. However, there are still more than 1,300 points left. Aoki looked at the system panel and was silent. After reaching level 13, the experience gain plummeted. He thought it was already bad, but he didn't expect level 14 to be a nightmare. After level 14, demons with double-digit experience were considered valuable, and many demons' experience even became 0. Objectively speaking, this is normal. Currently, his strength is enough to rival Kokoshibo. Many demon-s can't withstand his casual attack, so the experience can't be high. But subjectively, the reduction in experience gain is very uncomfortable. 1,300 experience points may not seem like much, but at the current speed of gaining experience, it is a despairing number. Aoki quickly calculated in his mind. Now he can get about 20 experience points on average for killing a demon. With the full support of the Demon Slayer Corps' intelligence, he can kill a demon every 5 days. Without taking a break, it will take more than 300 days to reach level 15. After calculating this number, Aoki was completely silent. It takes 1 year to level up. Even if he calmed down and slowly grinded, he might not have any problem reaching level 15, but what about the rest? The number of demons is limited, and it's questionable whether there are so many demons in the world for him to grind. Even if there are, it will take an extremely long time. Aoki took a breath. There are 2 ways. First, target the upper moons, and second, speed up the hunting. Jutaro and Daki gave him 1,500 experience points, and the other 5 would definitely yield higher benefits. Even if his experience decreases as his level increases, it is still very impressive. The problem is, if finding upper moons was easy, he would have gone looking for them long ago. The Demon Slayer Squad's investigation into the Eternal Paradise sect has yielded no results. To find the upper moons, just try your luck. The second option is to speed up the hunt. He spent most of his time on the road. Even though he used his physical strength for a long time and often used space shuttle to travel regardless of consumption, he still spent a lot of time on the road. Is there a way to solve this? There really is. Aoki looked at the White Walker skill bar. Level 2 Space Shuttle can create space marks. Space Mark Shuttle ignores distance and consumes very little. If he learns this skill, hunting demons quickly will become possible. However, learning level 2 Space Shuttle requires 4 skill points. He only has 2 now. He won't have enough until he reaches level 15. In other words, if he wants to learn level 2 Space Shuttle, he needs to reach level 15 first. No matter what, the experience to level up to level 15 must be gained slowly. Aoki rubbed the corner of his mouth. I feel like it was a mistake to learn Transparent World first. At that time, he was only thinking about improving his combat effectiveness, but he didn't expect that his experience gains would be cut so drastically. Looking back, he should have prioritized learning the Level 2 space shuttle that could not directly improve combat effectiveness. Caw. A crow's call sounded overhead, interrupting Aoki's thoughts. Is there another mission so soon? Northwest, Otaki Mountain, 12 Kazuki. Go as soon as possible. 12 Kazuki? Aoki perked up. Finally, the big fish came. He was having a headache about how to get the experience to level up to level 15. This mission came just in time. 12 Kazuki, I don't know who it is? I hope it's an upper moon. Aoki immediately embarked on the journey, he won't let anyone beat him to it. Chapter 68, Knock on the Door. Hashtag Okudama County, Mount Otaki. The moon shone brightly in the sky, the stars were woven into a tapestry, and the breeze rustled the leaves. Rustle. With the sound of light footsteps, a team arrived at the foot of the mountain. The leader, tall, elegant, and beautiful, wore a dark blue uniform and a butterfly-patterned haori, exuding a gentle temperament. Are you sure it's here? There was a bit of seriousness in the gentle voice of Kanae Kocho. The hidden member replied respectfully, Yes, Master Flower Hashira, we found the believers of Eternal Paradise. Through them, we confirmed that the founder of Eternal Paradise is a young man with white oak hair and colorful pupils. Upper Moon 2, Doma, Kanae Kocho muttered to herself, deeply recalling this image. God does not forsake those who work hard. After obtaining information from Mr. Aomura, more than 3 months had passed, and they finally found it. Kanae Kocho did not rashly climb the mountain. She knew how terrifying Doma's strength was. If she relied on herself, she couldn't even protect herself, let alone kill Doma. She had to wait for support. A burst of hurried footsteps sounded, and soon, a young man wearing a 2-color haori and an expressionless figure landed lightly beside her. Mr. Ju, you're here. Kanae Kocho breathed a sigh of relief. With 2 people, they could at least hold Doma for a while. Even if something unexpected happened, they were not completely helpless. You're here too? A hint of surprise flashed in Ju Tomioka's eyes. Is the target this time an upper moon? Kanae Kocho said concisely, Upper Moon 2, Doma. Upper Moon 2, Tomioka's eyes narrowed slightly. Is anyone else coming? After sparring with Mr. Aomura, the Hashira realized that defeating the upper moons was difficult alone. Facing Upper Moon 2, even if he and Kanae Kocho joined forces, it would likely be challenging to win. He wasn't afraid of danger or difficulty, but he was worried about wasting this precious opportunity. Yes, Kanae nodded. Mr. Aomura will come too. Mr. Aomura? That's reassuring. Tomioka Ju asked, when will Mr. Aomura arrive? I'm already here. As soon as he finished speaking, a familiar male voice sounded nearby. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound. A tall figure appeared on the previously empty ground. The captivating golden vertical pupils swept over them, and Aoki's expression was slightly surprised. Ms. Kanae, Mr. Ju, you two are here too. That means the target this time is likely an upper moon, could it be Doma? The logic of this judgment was simple, Doma was the upper moon they were most likely to find at present. Kanae Kocho said, Mr. Aomura guessed right. According to the investigation by Hidden, the Eternal Paradise sect is on this mountain. Finally found it. Excitement flashed in Aoki's eyes. It's truly a big fish. It came at just the right time. He was worrying about the experience needed to reach level 15. Tomioka looked at Aoki. Mr. Aomura, there is news about the boy named Kamado Tanjiro you're looking for. His home is on Mount Kumatori, northwest of here. Aoki smiled. Let's go, first deal with Doma, then find Tanjiro. He walked forward first, followed by Kanae Kocho and Ju Tomioka. The members of Hidden did not leave but followed the 3 from a distance, ready to support at any time. Walking on the rugged mountain road and passing through the dense forest, a luxurious temple appeared in front of him. Lanterns hung on the eaves of the temple, each inscribed with the word paradise. "It seems we've found the right place," Aoki said, looking at the temple from a distance. Mount Otaki is 1,000 meters high and covers a vast area. Although many families live there and some villages are at the foot of the mountain, Mount Otaki, like other remote areas of this era, is closed, backward, and rarely communicates with the outside world. Doma and the Eternal Paradise sect hidden Mount Otaki, like a grain of sand on the loess, inconspicuous. No wonder the Demon Slayer Corps took more than 3 months to find it. If he had relied on himself, he might not have found this place in 3 to 5 years. Creak. The door of the luxurious temple opened, and a middle-aged man holding a lantern came out. Seeing the 3 people, he was slightly stunned. "I didn't expect anyone to come so late. Do you want to join the church? Come with me, I'll take you to see the founder." The 3 did not move, and the expressions of Kanae Kocho and Ju Tomioka became very serious. The middle-aged man waved at them. "Come here. Our founder of Eternal Paradise is the Son of God who is loved by the gods. He does not need to rest and can receive believers even at night." Aoki said, "No need, your leader has come out to greet us personally." The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment, then suddenly looked up. A young man with white oak hair and colorful pupils sat cross-legged on the temple roof, his palms supporting his chin, with a gentle smile on his face. "I didn't expect you to find this place, it really surprised me." Ju Tomioka quietly grasped the hilt of his sword, and his expressionless face became even colder. "Is this Upper Moon too? Such a terrifying aura, no wonder Kanae couldn't defeat him. But..." He glanced at Aoki next to him. "I feel inferior to Mr. Aomura." He felt extremely threatened by Upper Moon too, but facing Mr. Aomura, he felt like he was facing an insurmountable mountain. "It's really not easy to find you," Aoki said, pausing. "Besides, I have been looking forward to this day for a long time. Ever since he defeated the Jutaro and the Daki, he had been searching for Doma. It had been more than half a year now." Doma tilted his head, looked at Kanae Kocho, his smile brightened, and he waved the fan in his hand. "Miss Flower Hashira, we meet again. I'm so happy to see you again." He covered his mouth with the fan and said, "I regretted not being able to eat you last time. I won't miss it this time." Kanae Kocho said seriously, "Me too. I won't let you escape this time." Doma smiled and glanced at the 3 of them. "It turns out the Demon Slayer Corps has really cooperated with the defectors. During this period, you have caused a lot of trouble, and Lord Muzan is very angry." Aoki said, "Let him look away, the angry one is still ahead, if he gets angry to death, I won't have the chance to take off his head myself." The smile on Doma's face faded a bit. "You are really annoying." Aoki's expression was slightly strange. "To be told I'm annoying by the guy who's annoying everyone else. Speaking of which, Ju among the Hashira and Doma among the Upper Moons together, this is a scene that never happened in the original story chapter 69, Judgment and Feast." Aoki put away his distracting thoughts and said, "Miss Kanae, Mr. Ju, you can handle the other issues and leave Doma to me." Kanae looked at him with her beautiful eyes. "Mr. Aomura, are you sure you can manage alone?" "That's enough," Aoki replied confidently. They had never joined forces in battle and lacked coordination. More importantly, what if they actually decapitated Doma? Such an elite opponent was a precious resource, one that took more than half a year to find and wouldn't be easily replaced. Aoki preferred to work harder on his own than risk having Doma taken from him. Kanae and Ju exchanged glances. "All right." Without wasting any time, they rushed towards the temple. Blood demon art, lotus leaf ice. Doma waved his fan, dispersing a mist filled with ice crystals, which condensed into ice crystal lotuses. Flower breathing, second form, honorable shadow, plum. Water breathing, third form, flowing dance. The pink and blue swords flashed, shattering the ice crystal lotuses and blowing away the ice mist. Tomioka-ju grabbed the middle-aged man who was paralyzed with fear, and Kanae entered the temple without looking back. Doma waved his fan, preparing to attack again. Your opponent is me. Aoki's figure emerged from behind, his fist clenched like a spear, suddenly thrusting forward. Aoki Ryu, Judgment. This was a new move he had created. By concentrating all his power on a single point, he could cause devastating damage. While the attack power was immense, it also allowed for easy follow-ups with other moves. Around Doma, an ice crystal lotus suddenly bloomed. But in the next moment, with a bang, the ice crystal lotus shattered into countless shards. Doma fell from the roof like a meteor, hitting the ground heavily. His left shoulder, left hand, and half of his chest were missing, with his flesh and blood squirming, unable to heal. His strength has increased. Doma didn't hesitate at all. Blood Demon Art, Water Lily Bodhisattva. Boom! An ice crystal Buddha more than 10 meters high rose from the ground. Doma had felt it last time, the defector's attacks carried a special power that caused great harm to demons. To avoid getting hurt, using Water Lily was the only option. But this wasn't enough. Doma sat on the lotus flower on the Buddha's right shoulder, continuously waving his fan. Blood Demon Art, Crystallized Royal Sun. Groups of ice crystals flew out, transforming into icemen with the same appearance as him but 2 sizes smaller in physique. Doma's body slowly merged into the ice crystal Buddha, a soft smile on his face. I have helpers too. The iceman didn't hesitate and immediately launched attacks. Lotus Leaf Ice, Vine Lotus Flower, Scattered Lotus Flower, Cold White Princess, Cold Winter Icicle, one after another, ice attacks struck Aoki, their power not inferior to those used by Doma himself. The surrounding temperature plummeted, as if shifting from the height of summer to the depths of winter in an instant. Tomioka-ju looked grim. This is the power of Upper Moon 2. Not to mention the Ice Crystal Buddha or Upper Moon 2 himself, but even these icemen were formidable. He felt that dealing with them alone would be challenging. How will Mr. Aomura respond? Should I assist? As Tomioka-ju pondered, Aoki's figure suddenly disappeared. The next moment. Bang, 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 bang. 6 simultaneous sounds echoed, and the 6 icemen instantly shattered, ice shards scattering and forming clusters of white flowers on the ground. Aoki's figure reappeared in the same spot, as if he had never moved. Aoki Ryu, Feast. This was another move he had created, combining space shuttle and combat intuition to maximize power and speed, breaking through the cooldown limit. The only drawback was its high energy consumption. All destroyed? Tomioka-ju's eyes widened. He subconsciously thought, if they encountered this move during sparring with Mr. Aomura, could they have blocked it? He shook his head, feeling doubtful. How could you take out my iceman so quickly? Doma's eyes flashed as his figure merged into the giant Buddha. At the same time, the ice crystal Buddha raised its palm and slashed at Aoki. It was as if a nerve in Aoki's mind was touched. His body automatically dodged the strike and retaliated with a horizontal elbow strike. With a bang, the ice crystal Buddha's palm and forearm shattered. After learning martial arts hard, Aoki's moves became more precise and concise, while combat intuition improved his fighting instincts, enhancing his combat consciousness and skills significantly. Hoo. A gust of cold wind came. Aoki felt that even with his current physique, if he were hit by a blow, his body would become stiff. He turned sharply to avoid the cold wind, then used Space Shuttle to close in on the Ice Crystal Buddha, boldly engaging in close combat. While maintaining the giant Buddha, Doma emerged from various locations, attacking Aoki with the Blood Demon Art. After settling the matter within the Eternal Paradise sect, Kanae hurried outside and watched the battle between Aoki and Doma, her eyes filled with admiration. Mr. Aomura has become stronger. Tomioka-ju nodded slowly. The strength of Upper Moon 2 was overwhelming. His previous thoughts were correct. He and Kanae couldn't defeat Doma. However, in front of Mr. Aomura, such a powerful upper moon too was almost powerless to fight back. Neither of them spoke again, watching the battle intently. Bang! Half of the Ice Buddha's body shattered, and Doma glanced at Aoki indifferently. After becoming a demon, he had the thought that he might die for the first time, but he still felt no fear. Crash! The ice spread, and the Ice Buddha's body reformed. The body condensed by the blood demon art wasn't affected by the demon devourer. However, Aoki noticed that the repair speed of the Ice Crystal Buddha had significantly decreased, and its body had become much rougher. It was evident that Doma's physical strength was waning. Demons had immense physical strength, but it wasn't infinite. Under various conditions, even Muzan Kabutsuji's physical strength would eventually be exhausted. Water Lily Bodhisattva was a terrifying move that consumed a lot of energy. Maintaining it for so long, while constantly breaking and reorganizing, was impressive. In comparison, Aoki's physical strength was still abundant. He had been very restrained in using Space Shuttle and Transparent World. It's time. Aoki dodged the Ice Buddha's knife, his eyes becoming sharp. Aoki Ryu, feast. Bang, bang, bang. The Ice Buddha suffered 6 simultaneous attacks, its body torn into pieces, but Doma was nowhere inside. Mr. Aomura, he's running away. Kanae Kocho's anxious voice came. Aoki's eyes turned, immediately locking onto Doma, who was fleeing quickly. Kanae Kocho and Tomioka Ju chased closely, but their speed was clearly not as fast as Doma's. Chapter 70, Space Mark. You were just imitating Muzan Kabutsuji, Aoki said, unfazed. Just kidding. The last time Doma ran away, it was because it was daybreak. This time, there was no such condition. Aoki's figure disappeared silently. Doma tried to escape. The dignity of a samurai meant nothing to him. He was not afraid of death, but he didn't want to die either. A figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Doma reacted quickly, waving his fan. Blood demon art, scattering lotus. Under the moonlight, tiny ice petals fluttered like a dream, but their edges were as sharp as blades, easily harvesting any life that touched them. Aoki narrowed his eyes slightly, using Transparent World and Battle Intuition to the limit. He instantly found a path and approached Doma almost unscathed. Bang bang bang. The collision was rapid and violent. A black shadow flew over. Kocho Kanae and Tomioka Ju subconsciously dodged. Only after the black shadow landed did they realize it was Doma. Then, another figure appeared, and his fist smashed down with mighty force. Boom! The earth rolled and cracked. Kanae and Ju took a few steps back, looking at the dying upper rank too, and gradually felt relieved. Only then did they realize they had been overly concerned. With Mr. Aomura's ability, how could the enemy escape? Doma lay on the ground, a huge hole in his chest, blood constantly flowing from the corner of his mouth. The wound squirmed but did not recover. His physical strength was exhausted, his regeneration ability collapsed, and he was at his limit. I didn't expect that I would die at the hands of a demon, Doma said, his face calm and indifferent, with no fear, unwillingness, despair, or any emotions in his eyes. At this time, is it a good thing to have no feelings? Aoki shook the blood off his hands. Doma glanced at him indifferently. Defector, don't be too proud, the master will definitely. Bang! His head exploded like a watermelon. Open your mouth, Muzan. Shut up, Muzan. I didn't expect you to be so loyal. Aoki muttered to himself, retracted his foot, and stretched out his palm. An invisible vortex appeared, and Doma's body twisted and disappeared, as if swallowed by an invisible big mouth. Kanae and Ju watched intently. They knew that Mr. Aomura could become stronger by consuming demons, but this was the first time they saw the specific process. Unlike what they had imagined, the whole process was not terrifying, just a little strange. Constitution, +1. Free skill points, +2. Killed upper rank 2 and gained 2000 experience points. Congratulations on your upgrade. Ended a battle and gained 42 experience points. Great. Aoki sighed with satisfaction. It had to be an upper-rank demon. This experience, this reward, was truly satisfying. The previous gains, that barely broke double digits, were simply unbearable to look at. Martial Artist also gained 42 experience points. Not bad. A lot of gains. Without paying attention to Kanae and Ju next to him, Aoki directly opened the system. Name, Aoki. Strength, 19. Constitution, 19. Intelligence, 19. Agility, 19. Occupation, Hunter, White Walker, Martial Artist. Free attribute points, 2. White Walker. Quality. Level, LV15, 813/1500. Skills, Demon Blood 4, Space Shuttle, Transparent World, Devouring Demon 2. Mission, The Last Days of Upper Moon, February 3rd. Free skill points, 5. Martial Artist. Quality. Level, LV3, 53/300. Skills, Heart of Martial Arts, Combat Intuition, Body Control, not learned yet, Unyielding Will, not learned yet. Gaining 1 point of Constitution balanced the attributes. Following his previous plan, Aoki first allocated 2 free attribute points to Strength and Intelligence. The former directly increased attack power, while the latter offered many benefits, including enhancing mental strength. After arranging the attribute points, the real focus was on skills. The last upgrade saved 2 skill points, the Demon Devourer got 2 extra skill points, plus the 1 skill point obtained from the upgrade. A total of 5 free skill points, allowing him to learn 1 more skill. Aoki's eyes lingered on the level 5 Demon Blood and the level 2 Space Shuttle. The level 2 Transparent World indicated that prerequisite skills were insufficient. He would need to wait until Demon Blood upgraded another level before learning it, so he set it aside for now. Initially, he planned to learn level 5 Demon Blood. Not only could he gain 4 attributes, reaching the 20-point mark in all attributes, but he could also break through the bloodline limit and overcome the weakness of decapitation. However, the painful experiences of the past 3 months made him reconsider. Currently, his combat effectiveness was sufficient. Doma had died by his hands. Kokoshiba was, at most, on par with him. If they fought to the death, he would be the final winner. The only real threat was Muzan Kibutsuji. However, the gap between him and Muzan Kibutsuji couldn't be bridged by just 4 attributes. As for the weakness of decapitation by the Nichiren sword, it had no effect. He and the Demon Slayer Corps were allies, and they had been getting along well for the past few months. It was almost impossible for the Demon Slayer Corps to harm him. If he encountered danger, he could simply run away. After reaching level 15, it was evident that experience gain had reduced again. But with level 2 Space Shuttle, his travel time would be greatly reduced. In the future, the only thing restricting his upgrade speed would be the Demon Slayer Corps obtaining intelligence. Although it sounded complicated, Aoki's mind made the decision in less than a second. Learn level 2 Space Shuttle. As for Demon Blood, it would have to wait. Despite coming first, Space Shuttle was more important now. The upgrade was uneventful. Information appeared in Aoki's mind, then it ended. The only change with level 2 Space Shuttle was the ability to make space imprints. Transmission through space imprints was not limited by distance and consumed very little energy. After carefully feeling it, Aoki sensed a familiarity. Isn't this like the Flying Thunder God? In general, the two were indeed similar, but there were still differences in details. First, the space mark couldn't be engraved on a living body. Secondly, if one wasn't proficient in the power of space, erasing the space mark was almost impossible, but if the carrier was destroyed, the space mark would automatically collapse. This feature isn't entirely a disadvantage, Aoki mused. The collapse of the space mark was a process. Before it completely collapsed, it could still be used for transmission. Although he hadn't tried it yet, he should be able to sense this change. Using this feature, he could create a summoning prop. Of course, it could also be used by the enemy, so he had to be careful when making a space mark. Chapter 71, Upper 6. Kanae's pretty face was full of amazement, while Ju remained expressionless, though there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. They both clearly felt that Mr. Aomura's aura had suddenly become much stronger. Among the top members of the Demon Slayer Corps, it was no secret that Mr. Aomura could become stronger by devouring demons. He had just devoured upper rank 2, so it was normal for him to become stronger. What shocked them was the extent to which Mr. Aomura had become stronger. A thought suddenly popped into Kanae's mind: if he devours enough demons, can Mr. Aomura's strength surpass Muzan Kibutsuji? Startled by her own thoughts, her heartbeat quickened, but she soon calmed down. Mr. Aomura is also a demon. It's unlikely that he can surpass the ancestor of demons, right? However, demons become stronger by eating humans. I've never heard of a demon eating another demon to become stronger. Mr. Aomura is undoubtedly special. It's not impossible for him to surpass Muzan Kibutsuji. Seeing that Mr. Aomura seemed to have digested everything, Kanae put away her scattered thoughts. Mr. Aomura, what do we do next? Aoki pondered slightly. I plan to find a place to rest first, and then go to Tanjiro tomorrow. The battle with Doma had also consumed a lot of his energy. The key was using feast twice. For him now, this was an absolute big move. The powerful power was exchanged for terrible consumption. Even without considering other factors, just 12 space shuttles consumed a lot of physical and mental strength. In fact, to break the cooling time limit of Space Shuttle, the consumption of Feast was much greater than the normal use of Space Shuttle. However, with Doma's devouring, his physical strength had been restored. Rest was just an excuse. His real plan was to study the space mark. Level 2 Space Shuttle was almost another skill. He was full of interest and couldn't wait to experience it. Anyway, Tanjiro's house is there, and he won't run away. One day earlier or later doesn't make much difference. Tomioka Ju nodded silently, agreeing without saying a word. Kanae pursed her lips and smiled. Then Mr. Aomura, go and rest. Leave this to us. Upper rank 2 was completely handled by Mr. Aomura alone. Not to mention just wanting to rest, even if he had more excessive requests, she would have no objections. Aoki said again, Miss Kanae, after I go back this time, I hope to meet with the head of the Ubuyashiki family. To meet the Lord? Kanae showed some curiosity but didn't ask more. I will inform the Lord. Then I will trouble you. Aoki said. After making an appointment with Ju for the meeting place tomorrow, he left alone. Muzan Kibutsuji's long hair danced wildly, his face ferocious, his veins bulging, and whips stretched out from his back. The earth was broken, and the buildings collapsed. The people around were terrified and fled in panic. In the blink of an eye, the bustling streets became empty. Defector. Muzan Kibutsuji said word by word, his voice cold as ice, and his killing intent chilling. The defector and the Demon Slayer Corps were mixed together, and the death rate of demons had increased dramatically during this period. He had no feelings for his own kind and didn't care to increase the number of demons. However, he needed demons to find blue spider lilies and trace the Ubuyashiki clan. The death of many demons made him extremely angry. Now, even Doma was dead. Although he didn't like Doma, Doma was still the upper rank 2 he had chosen and the second strongest demon under his command. The vacancy left by Jotaro had not yet been filled, and now another upper rank was gone. He felt that the system he had built was collapsing. And all this was because of the defector. Unlike the Demon Slayer Corps or even the monster back then, the defector was a demon with an endless lifespan. If the defector wasn't dealt with, the threat he posed would never disappear. The defector must die. Moreover, all his secrets are mine. Muzan Kibutsuji's ferocious expression gradually calmed down, but the murderous intent in his eyes intensified, and his figure suddenly disappeared. Infinity Castle. Nakime was sitting on a high platform holding a biwa, with long black hair hanging down from both sides, covering half of her face, revealing only a small nose and a delicate mouth. Muzan Kibutsuji's figure appeared beside her. With two upper ranks missing, they had to be replaced as soon as possible. However, demons with the potential to become upper ranks were very rare. After Jutaro's death, he had been looking for a replacement but hadn't found one that satisfied him. No, there was still one. Muzan Kibutsuji looked at Nakime. Nakime was the demon he knew so far with the most potential to become an upper rank. As long as she could bear a large amount of his blood, Nakime's strength would increase rapidly. However, if she couldn't bear it, Nakime was likely to die. Nakime was in charge of the Infinity Castle, which was very important to him. If an accident happened and Nakime died, causing the Infinity Castle to collapse, it would be a huge loss. Muzan Kibutsuji looked at Nakime silently, his pale face expressionless, but the murderous intent and tyranny in his eyes grew stronger and stronger. Puff! He suddenly raised his palm and pierced Nakime's forehead with his index finger, and a large amount of blood spurted from his fingertip. Muzan Kibutsuji's voice was devoid of emotion. Nakime, if you can endure this, I will make you an upper rank. If the defector isn't dealt with, the trouble will never go away and will even get worse. And to solve the defector, one must first restrain his ability to escape. The last incident proved that it was impossible to kill the defector without solving this problem. Even if he did it himself. The only way to restrain the defector's ability was the Infinity Castle. The Infinity Castle was an independent space with a limited area under Nakime's control. Once the defector entered, he would become a mouse in a cage. However, before that, it was necessary to strengthen Nakime's power and control of the Infinity Castle. At the same time, it was necessary to use Nakime's ability to search for the defector. Puff! Muzan Kibutsuji withdrew his fingers. Ah! Nakime screamed, her neck stiffening, and she looked up suddenly, her long hair scattering, revealing her true face. Below her nose, she looked human, but above that, there was only one eye the size of an egg in the middle of her face. Hee hee. Nakime's body twitched constantly. Blue veins spread outward from the single eye, gradually covering her entire face. Her hair seemed to become living tentacles, floating and swaying, blending into the wall behind her, and spreading outward continuously, forming a pattern full of twisted lines. Boom! The Infinity Castle seemed to experience an earthquake, the building shaking violently, and cracks appeared on the ground. At the same time, Nakime's aura became stronger and stronger. She don't know how long it took. Nakime stopped struggling, and the movement in the Infinity Castle ceased. She raised her head, revealing a face full of blue veins, and in the single eye in the middle, there was the character 6. Chapter 72, Heading to Kumatori Mountain. Muzan Kibutsuji had a satisfied expression on his face. Being able to withstand so much blood, Nakime really lived up to his expectations. Nakime gently played the biwa, and the collapsed buildings quickly recovered, the cracks healing one by one. In the blink of an eye, Infinity Castle was restored to its original state. You did a great job, Nakime. Kibutsuji Muzan said. Ever since the defectors appeared, almost nothing had gone his way. Nakime's promotion to the upper ranks was the only thing that had pleased him recently. Thank you, sir, for your cultivation. Nakime bowed her head slightly. Kibutsuji Muzan asked, Nakime, how is your power now? Nakime responded respectfully, Master Muzan, I can now create a large number of eyeballs and send them to various parts of the world through the power of Infinity Castle to collect information. Very good. Kibutsuji Muzan's voice suddenly turned cold. Search for the defectors with all your strength. Master Muzan, what about the Demon Slayer Corps? Ignore them for now. We'll deal with them after we handle the defectors. Kibutsuji Muzan thought for a moment, then added, however, except for the Ubuyashiki clan. Inform me immediately when you find them. He didn't care about the ordinary members of the Demon Slayer Corps, including the so-called Hashira. To him, they were all ants unworthy of attention. However, the Ubuyashiki clan was on his must-kill list, just like the defectors. I understand, Lord Muzan. Nakime played the biwa gently. A chair appeared out of thin air. Kibutsuji Muzan sat down. This time, he wasn't going anywhere. He would wait here. Ubuyashiki, defectors, enjoy it while you can, this is your last chance. Kibutsuji Muzan crossed his arms and looked at Nakime quietly. Under the dark night, people gradually fell asleep. The sounds of the town faded away, and finally, it fell into complete silence. On the deserted streets, spatial fluctuations that no one could detect disappeared in a flash, and two eyeballs quietly appeared on the ground. These eyeballs were the size of fists, with the character 6 engraved in the middle of the pupils. Tentacles grew below them, resembling small octopuses or strange spiders. After the eyeballs fell to the ground, the tentacles swung, and they quickly disappeared into the night. This scene happened in many places simultaneously. There was a protruding rock under a big straight tree. Moonlight filtered through the treetops, leaving patches of light and shadow on the ground. A stream flowed beside it. Aoki sat cross-legged on a rock, leaning against the big tree, holding a palm-sized stone in his hand. He scratched with his sharp nails, creating a wound on the tip of his right index finger, and red blood oozed out. Using his finger as a pen and blood as ink, Aoki quickly began to draw on the stone. A complex diamond pattern gradually emerged. After finishing the last stroke, Aoki stared at the stone. After 2 seconds, he shook his head and sighed. Failed again. Creating a spatial imprint required a medium, and for Aoki, the best medium was his own blood. He understood the entire process. However, it was not easy to make one. It was necessary not only to ensure that the carved patterns were accurate but also to meet certain mental and will conditions. The whole process was not difficult, but it required a lot of practice to master. I thought I could try the space mark teleportation today. Aoki suppressed his frustration, threw the discarded stone into the stream, and took out another stone from the nearby pile. Time passed, the sun rose and set. Aoki threw away the stone in his hand and stood up. In one day, I didn't succeed even once. It seems I can only wait until later. The time he had agreed upon with Ju was approaching. Aoki quickly went down the mountain and met Ju on a small bridge. The two didn't exchange many words. Under Ju's guidance, they headed northwest and finally arrived at a small town. At first, we discovered Tanjiro's information in this town. After I came to investigate, I confirmed that he was the boy you were looking for, Mr. Aomura. Tomioka Ju pointed to the mountain behind the town. That's Mount Kumatori. The Kamado family lives on that mountain. Mount Kumatori is the highest mountain in Tokyo, with an altitude of more than 2,000 meters. It is located in Okutama County along with Mount Otaki, where the Eternal Paradise sect is situated. Okutama County is on the northwest edge of Tokyo and is one of the least developed areas in the city. While Asakusa and other prosperous areas have begun to modernize, most places in Okutama County remain backward. Along the way, the two barely felt the breath of modern civilization. It was already late at night, and the town was quiet. Except for the occasional barking of dogs and crowing of roosters, there was no noise. Aoki and Tomioka Ju did not stop and directly chose to climb the mountain. Mount Kumatori was remote, and the mountain path was difficult to traverse. However, Aoki and Tomioka Ju were adept climbers. At dawn, the two arrived at the halfway point of Mount Kumatori. There was a flat area here with many straight trees. Among the big trees stood a dilapidated small house. This is the Kamado family, Tomioka Ju said. Aoki looked at the house from a distance, with a bit of hesitation on his face. Because of him, the development of this world had undergone significant changes. However, as the protagonist of this era, Tanjiro's fate had not been greatly affected. If he took this step, Tanjiro's fate would inevitably change dramatically. In the original work, Tanjiro played an indispensable role in killing Muzan Kibutsuji. He was the first to awaken the marks, and in the final battle, Tanjiro was also the most important fighting force. Without Tanjiro, it would be impossible to defeat Muzan Kibutsuji, is no exaggeration. If there were no Tanjiro. Hello, do you need help? A crisp voice interrupted his thoughts, and Aoki looked up. A girl stood at the door of the wooden house in front. Her hair was tied into a bun, and her kimono was washed white with many mended spots. On her fair and beautiful face, there was a sunny, pure, and unguarded smile. Aoki smiled. The impact is inevitable. Even if he didn't contact Tanjiro, Muzan Kibutsuji might not come to Tanjiro's house. Without Tanjiro, there would be no such events. He had confidence in himself and the system. Even if the family hadn't suffered a great disaster, Tanjiro could still become a swordsman. Hatred is a driving force for Tanjiro, but it is not the only one. With Tanjiro's character, seeing the sins committed by the demons would still enrage him. Aoki looked at Ju. Mr. Ju, may I speak with them alone? Of course. Tomioka Ju looked at him, turned around, and left without asking any questions. Chapter 73, Blue Spider Lily and Kagura, the Dance of Fire God. Aoki watched Ju leave. What he was going to do next was quite sensitive, so it would be better to hide it from the Demon Slayer Corps. This was not a question of trust or distrust. As the old saying goes, if the king is not secretive, his ministers will lose. If the ministers are not secretive, they will lose their virtue. If the secret is not secret, it will cause harm. Some things should be kept secret when they should be kept secret. Nezuko tilted her head, a puzzled expression on her face. Why did he leave? The door behind her opened, and a woman wearing a white square-collared gown and a white headscarf walked out of the house. Nezuko, who are you talking to? It's Tanjiro. Huh? Who is this guest? A look of surprise appeared on Kamaduki's face. Because they lived in the mountains, they rarely had visitors. This should be Tanjiro's mother. Aoki walked over and said politely, Mrs. Kamadu, Miss Nezuko, hello, my name is Aomura. Hello, Mr. Aomura. Kamaduki bowed slightly. Nezuko bowed along with her mother, her little head dazed and curious as to why he knew her name. Madam, I want to discuss something with you, Aoki said. Although Kamaduki was a little confused, she still enthusiastically brought Aoki into the house. The conditions are simple, please forgive me. No need to bother, madam. Aoki took the tea and asked, isn't Tanjiro at home? He had just seen a group of little children smaller than Nezuko, but not Tanjiro. Tanjiro went down the mountain to sell charcoal and hasn't come back yet. Does Mr. Aomura know Tanjiro? Kamaduki tried to probe carefully. I've heard of Tanjiro, but Tanjiro probably doesn't know me. Aoki smiled and asked directly without beating around the bush, I heard that there is a blue spider lily nearby. Madam, do you know the location? It turns out Mr. Aomura came here for the blue spider lily. I do know the location. Kamaduki was suddenly enlightened. However, the flowering time of the blue spider lily is very short. It only blooms for 2 or 3 days when the sun is the strongest. Moreover, it does not bloom every year. Aoki breathed a sigh of relief and said sincerely, Madam, please tell me the location. This way, even if the sun cannot be overcome through the power of the system, there is still hope of becoming the ultimate creature. As for defects such as short flowering time and not blooming every year, these are not problems. He could wait. Kibutsuji Muzan had searched for it for thousands of years, but still couldn't find it. Waiting for 2 or 3 years was nothing. Sure. He agreed readily and looked out the window. Tanjiro should be back soon. When Tanjiro comes back, let him take you there. Tanjiro knows the location better than me. Thank you, madam. Aoki took out a stack of coins and put them on the table. This is the reward. So much money? Ki was startled and quickly waved her hands. No, no need. Mr. Aomura, please put it away. This is not a precious thing. To you, it may not be a big deal, but to me, it is very important. Aoki said, besides, this is not just the money for the blue spider lily information. I also want two other things. He hesitated for a moment. There are two more things? Mr. Aomura, please tell me. Aoki said, first, I want a little bit of your family's blood. Second, I want to learn Kagura, the dance of the fire god. There are two extraordinary powers in this world, the power of demons and the methods of breathing. After experiencing extraordinary power, he of course thought about the breathing method. However, the breathing method is in the hands of the Demon Slayer Corps, and it can even be said to be the foundation of the Demon Slayer Corps. He and the Demon Slayers only have a cooperative relationship. Just as the Demon Slayers did not explore his secrets, it was impossible for him to directly ask the Demon Slayers for the breathing method. Maybe he could try it later when their trust level was high. However, he had a better option. The breath of the sun, the initial breath, the strongest breath, the source of all breathing methods, has been passed down in the Kamadu family under the name of Kagura, the dance of the fire god. Of course, the requirements for sun breathing are extremely high, and few people can meet the standards. Aoki was not sure whether he had this qualification. However, compared to the issue of qualifications, he was actually more worried about whether he could use the breathing method. The basic principle of the breathing method is to inhale a large amount of oxygen in a short period of time, speed up the heartbeat and blood flow, increase body temperature, and explode with power far beyond ordinary people. The body structure of demons is hugely different from that of humans. Can demons learn breathing techniques? Kokushibo and Akaza could use the breathing method because they had mastered it before they were alive. After becoming demons, their blood demon art was also related to the breathing method. But whether he could learn it or not was a question that needed to be considered later. For now, he just needed to get the breathing method. Blood? Kagura, the dance of the fire god? Kamaduki looked confused. Both requests were completely beyond her expectations. Aoki took out the blood collection device. Madam, please rest assured, I only need to take a little blood from each person, and it will never cause any harm to them. The blood is fine. Kamaduki said that living in the mountains is bound to be bumpy, and a little blood is nothing. But Kagura, the dance of the fire god. Isn't it convenient? Aoki frowned slightly. It's not inconvenient. Ki shook her head slightly. In her opinion, the dance of the fire god is just a dance used to pray to the fire god, not something precious. Her husband only asked to pass on the dance of the fire god and never said it was forbidden to teach others. However, she did not make a rash decision. Ki said, Mr. Aomura, I need to discuss this matter with Tanjiro first. Although Tanjiro is still young, he is the eldest son in the family and the one who masters the dance of the fire god. He has more decision-making power than her in this matter. Of course. Aoki did not force her, and stood up, saying, Then I will visit again tomorrow. Wait a minute, Mr. Aomura. Ki hurriedly picked up the money on the table. Please take this back. Madam, for me, whether it is the blue spider lily or the dance of the fire god, they are treasures worth a lot of money. This little money is just a token of my gratitude, it is nothing. Aoki said calmly, I see that Nezuko's clothes are very old. You can use this money to buy some new clothes for the children. Even if there was only information about the blue spider lily, he had gained a lot and would not be stingy with money. He still had a lot of money. In addition, the Demon Slayer Corps also paid him a salary, still according to the standards of the Hashira. He was not short of money now. Kamaduki hesitated immediately. She had long been accustomed to poverty, but she hoped her children could live a good life. Not to mention the new and old clothes, they usually had difficulty filling their stomachs and often had to dig for wild vegetables. In winter, when there were no wild vegetables, they might go hungry. But, this is too much. Mr. Aomura, you, eh? Kamaduki had made up her mind, but there was no sign of Aoki in the room. Chapter 74, Space Imprint. Nezuko was carrying her brother Rokuta on her back, humming a lullaby. When she heard the creaking sound of the door opening, she turned her head and smiled brightly. "Mr. Aomura, are you leaving?" "Yes." Aoki put on a bamboo hat and suddenly stretched out his hand, patting Nezuko's head with a smile. "See you tomorrow, Miss Nezuko." His body was 18 years old, while Nezuko was only 11. Although this action was a bit forward, it wouldn't attract criticism. "Huh?" Nezuko blinked, and her fair face turned red. Aoki waved at her, then quickly disappeared into the jungle. At this time, Ki chased out of the room, looking around. "Nezuko, where is Mr. Aomura?" Nezuko pointed in the direction Aoki had gone. "Mr. Aomura has left." "Left? It seems that we can only wait until tomorrow." Kamado Ki held the money tightly in her hand. Nezuko secretly glanced in the direction Aoki had left. On the other side, after Aoki said goodbye to Nezuko, he soon met Tomioka Ju in the jungle. He took off his hat and walked over. "Mr. Ju, I will stay here for a few more days. If you have something to do, you can leave first." In the woods, the lush treetops completely blocked the sky, so there was no need to worry about the sun. "Then I'll take my leave first." Tomioka Ju turned around and left without hesitation. As a Hashira, he was very busy and couldn't stay here forever. As for the Kamado family, before this, he, or the Demon Slayer Corps, had carefully investigated them. Whether it was Tanjiro Kamado or the rest of the Kamado family, there was nothing special about them. They were just an ordinary rural family. The only thing worth noting is that Tanjiro Kamado seems to have a very good sense of smell, very similar to teacher Urokodaki. If he is well trained, he may become a powerful swordsman and take over the water Hashira position. However, hunting demons is very dangerous, and you may face death at any time. Tanjiro Kamado's family lives a very happy life. He couldn't let Tanjiro be in danger for his own selfish desires. As for Mr. Aomura's purpose in contacting the Kamado family, he really couldn't guess it, and he didn't ask rashly. Although there was no specific agreement, it was a tacit understanding between the Demon Slayer Corps and Mr. Aomura not to explore each other's secrets. Tanjiro walked skillfully on the mountain road with a bit of joy on his face. The charcoal was sold very smoothly, and he bought a lot of food. In the next few days, his younger siblings shouldn't need to eat wild vegetables anymore. After walking across the cliff and through the jungle, Tanjiro returned home smoothly. Strangely, there was no one outside. He judged from the smell that everyone was in the house. Without thinking too much, Tanjiro took the purchased food, walked over, and pushed open the door. "I'm back." Everyone looked at him in unison. "What's wrong? What happened?" Tanjiro was stunned, and his nose twitched slightly. It was the smell of joy. Everyone seemed very happy. "Did something good happen?" Nezuko pointed to the table, and Tanjiro looked at it, and his eyes widened suddenly. "Money! So much money! More than all the money he had ever seen in his life. What's going on? How can there be so much money?" Tanjiro was so shocked that he turned into an emoticon. Nezuko's eyes sparkled. "Mr. Aomura gave it to us." "Mr. Aomura?" Tanjiro looked confused. Who was Mr. Aomura? Why did he give them so much money for no reason? Kamado Ki stood up, took the food from Tanjiro's hand, and told him the whole story. "So that's it." Tanjiro was still dizzy. He just went out to sell charcoal, and his family had a sum of money that he couldn't spend in his lifetime. Ki said, "Tanjiro, what do you think about Mr. Aomura wanting to learn Kagura, the dance of the fire god?" "Sure." Tanjiro Kamado said without hesitation, "If Mr. Aomura wants to learn, I can teach him, but..." He glanced at the money on the table and hesitated. "Mom, isn't this too much?" In his opinion, whether it is blood, blue spider lily, or Kagura, the dance of the fire god, they are not so precious. Although they are poor, they should not take advantage of others in terms of money. Kamado Ki smiled and nodded gently. I plan to keep a small part, and return the rest to Mr. Aomura tomorrow. That's good. Tanjiro showed a simple smile on his face. There is too much money here, even if only a little is left, it will be enough for them to spend for a long time. At least within a year, the family will not have to worry about hunger. Mr. Aomura is really a good person. When teaching Kagura the dance of the fire god, he must teach seriously. Ki smiled and said, I can buy Nezuko and the others new clothes during the new year. Nezuko said quickly, Mom, this dress of mine is still in good condition. Ki smiled and touched her hair, then remembered something and said, By the way, Tanjiro, Mr. Aomura seems to know you. Nezuko and the others also looked at him. Tanjiro was stunned for a moment, and based on the appearance his mother had just described, he carefully searched his memory, and finally shook his head. I don't have any impression. Mr. Aomura has a very distinctive appearance. If he has seen him, he should not forget it. However, he still secretly decided to wait until tomorrow to smell Mr. Aomura's scent. For him, the nose is more trustworthy than the eyes. As time passed, the last ray of the sun's afterglow dissipated, and the world was completely shrouded in the night. Aoki held a wooden board in his hand, using his finger as a pen and blood as ink, concentrating on drawing space marks on the board. After the last stroke, the wound on his finger healed automatically, but he didn't even look at it, staring at the board in his hand. Buzz. A slight space wave spread, like a stone thrown into the calm water. Aoki's eyes lit up instantly. Under his gaze, the blood rune quickly turned silver from top to bottom. He stretched out his finger and touched it gently. There was no abnormality. The complex silver prism pattern was completely integrated with the wooden board, like a special pattern born with it. Beautiful, exquisite, and a bit mysterious, it looked great. Aoki felt it seriously. After the spatial imprint was formed, there was an extra coordinate in his mind, just like a light source suddenly appeared in front of him, with a strong sense of presence. It's nothing if there is only one, but if there are more, it might distract attention. However, it's not a big problem, just something to get used to. With more spatial imprints, distinguishing which coordinate corresponds to which spatial imprint requires careful study. Chapter 75, First Meeting with Tanjiro. Then, next. Aoki grabbed the board and threw it hard. The board spun and flew quickly down the mountain. Just as it was about to fall off the cliff, a figure suddenly walked out of the void and grabbed it. Aoki pondered slightly, then threw the board again. After repeating the experiment several times, he had a basic understanding of the space imprint shuttle. Firstly, the consumption of a space imprint shuttle is roughly equivalent to that of a short-distance space shuttle. This consumption is constant and unaffected by distance. Secondly, a space imprint shuttle also has a startup time, which is essentially the same as a space shuttle. Finally, using a space imprint shuttle does not impact the space imprint itself. In other words, as long as the space mark is not destroyed, it can be used indefinitely and is not a consumable. For short distances, the consumption of a space imprint shuttle and a space shuttle are similar. However, due to the limitations of the carrier, the space imprint shuttle is not as fast or flexible as the space shuttle. In combat, the latter is still the preferred option. However, their functions differ. The space shuttle is akin to a flash step, while the space imprint shuttle is more like teleportation. Each has its irreplaceable role. Next, it's time to verify my guess. Aoki picked up a stone from the ground, flicked his wrist, and the board and stone flew out one after the other. The speed and power of the latter far exceeded the former. Boom! The two collided, the board shattered, and the silver runes dissipated. Aoki's figure appeared nearby, a bit of joy in his eyes. Success! The space mark was destroyed, and he immediately sensed the change, successfully completing the transmission before the space mark completely collapsed. In this way, he could not only actively support but also respond to calls for help. The utility of the space imprint shuttle had greatly increased. However, he had to be careful not to let the enemy exploit this. Looking at the sawdust on the ground, Aoki showed a hint of pain on his face. This was the first space mark he had successfully made after nearly 2 days and nights of effort. He had used several liters of blood alone. There's still time, let's make 2 more. Aoki picked up another board, scratched his fingers, and got busy again. As the saying goes, everything is difficult at the beginning. After the first successful attempt, the rest went much smoother. Before dawn, Aoki successfully made 3 space marks. He also spent some time practicing how to perceive spatial imprints. He threw the 3 spatial imprints into different places, then sensed and identified the coordinates from all directions. After becoming more proficient with fixed coordinates, he also tried moving coordinates. The specific method involved placing spatial imprints on animals. 1 night passed, and many animals on Kumatori Mountain were subjected to his experiments. After the first ray of sunlight rose in the morning, Aoki put away the space marks, put on his sunshade hat, and headed to Tanjiro's house again. Tanjiro got up as soon as it was light. Burning charcoal is hard work. You need to cut firewood, clean up the kiln, organize wood, and sort charcoal, among other tasks. Even with the unexpected fortune, he couldn't afford to be lazy. Brother! Nezuko walked out of the room with sleepy eyes. I'm here to help, too. Tanjiro smiled. Nezuko, you can sleep a little longer, I can do it myself. No need. Just in time to help my brother while Rokuta is still asleep. Huh? Mr. Aomura. Nezuko suddenly showed a surprised expression mid-sentence. Mr. Aomura? Of course, Tanjiro would not forget this name and quickly turned his head to look. A tall young man wearing a bamboo hat was slowly walking towards them. Tanjiro sniffed subconsciously, a look of confusion on his face. What a strange smell. Strange, weird, heavy. Kind of like a bear he'd encountered before. Thicker, but less dangerous. In short, it didn't smell like a human at all. Now he was very sure he had never met Mr. Aomura, otherwise, he would have remembered such a strange smell. Nezuko skipped over and looked up at Aoki, with a pure and innocent smile on her face. Here you are, Mr. Aomura. Miss Nezuko. Aoki patted her head and looked forward. A young man with dark red hair, red eyes, and a scar on his left forehead stood not far away, exuding a simple and gentle temperament. Kamado Tanjiro. After coming to this world for so long, he finally met the protagonist of this era. However, the protagonist Tanjiro had a tough life. His entire family was killed, and Nezuko, the only survivor, only returned to human form after enduring many hardships. Tanjiro himself came close to death many times, ending up blind in one eye, with a broken arm, and could only live to be 25 years old. Of course, most of the important people in this world had miserable lives. Seriously speaking, Tanjiro's situation was relatively good. Tanjiro walked towards Aoki and bowed slightly. Hello, Mr. Aomura, I am Tanjiro. Nice to meet you, Tanjiro. Aoki said. Tanjiro was the real hero. Kind, gentle, honest, and considerate, a bit like Kanae. Mr. Aomura, please come with me, Tanjiro said. Although Mr. Aomura's smell was strange, it exuded a friendly aura and made people feel at ease. They went into the room and just sat down when Ki came out with a package in her hand. Mr. Aomura, please accept this. Aoki did not take it and asked, Madam, Tanjiro, can you tell me about the dance of the fire god? Tanjiro quickly said, Of course, Mr. Aomura. If you want to learn Kagura, I'd be very happy. However, the dance of the fire god is very complicated. Aoki said, during the study period, I will pay you separately, so you don't have to worry about life. No, no, no. Tanjiro waved his hands repeatedly. That's not what I meant, and Mr. Aomura has already given enough. Ki put the package on the table. Yes, Mr. Aomura, we have taken what we need. Please take back the rest. Aoki said, Madam, Tanjiro, whether it is the dance of the fire god or the blue spider lily, they are far more precious than you think. This money is just a token of my gratitude. In fact, it is far less than their value." He turned to Tanjiro with a smile. "I didn't lie, did I?" Tanjiro's eyes widened slightly, and he did not sense any deceit. Aoki pushed the package back. "So, take it. If you don't accept the money, I will feel embarrassed to ask for your teachings. I spent a lot of effort finding this place." "Madam,